Hey, the Falcon has landed. And that's from Fu Manchu's In Search Of album from 1996. This is the Requiem Metal Podcast Patreon Doom Series Special Edition. I'm Mark.
And I'm Jason. And we are doing In Search Of from Fu Manchu, which may be a little bit of a little curveball. A little curveball. It's all right. We like to cover all the spectrum. As we said, in depending on when you listen or hear the winter episode, we're recording this the same day, so we're kind of looking at, we love all extremes. And it has been a while since we've done a Patreon show. We're probably off by a little month, but we figure Patreons probably understand because of how intense the
nobody's caught up to anything
interviews
yet,
we've been doing. It's a lot of extra work for the normal episodes.
I know of one listener that's listened to everything so far.
Oh yeah, who?
You know, we have Constant
Andreas?
Compact. Well, I don't know. That we've gotten feedback from.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So that's all I know. I know I've seen several things that people are like,
yeah,
hey, it's okay. Take a little bit of break.
Take your time, take a break. And this is a fun one. This is like, this is in the spirit of summer. You know, Mark and I talked a little bit in the winter episode about how we felt like maybe we were ruining everybody's summer with our Doom series. But
hey, get your BMX bike out and
fucking man, this is West Coast, Southern California,
Orange County.
Orange County. You got it. Yeah, Falcon has landed. Describes, Mark, a Ford Falcon pulling a wheel stand and landing back on the pavement.
Okay.
One of the most potent openings, I said, in the whole genre, and we'll talk about this genre of stoner rock, stoner metal, stoner doom, whatever you want to call it.
It's a quintessential Fu Manchu song for sure.
It's just, I said, when that drum roll finally kicks in, like, it does the dun, 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 and then that drum roll. I said, it's just money, man. The guitar tone on this whole record is
makes you want a shotgun of beer.
Perfect. Yeah, God. I said, it makes my head feel cloudy. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like a little spacey,
Well, this, after I picked up like the first Blue Cheer record years and years ago, I got really cheap. And this is what I wanted it to sound like.
Yeah.
And it didn't sound like that.
There's one, I think it's one I don't have that's like the heaviest of the Blue Cheers. And now I got to track it down a little bit.
Okay.
It's the one from like 69. It
was the first one I got. It had Summertime Blues
Vincius Eruptus, from 68. Yeah, some of the later ones, and then the Randy, who's the guitar player? I got his solo record. Randy Larson? No,
Randy Larson he's in Return to Grief and Cable and stuff.
Yeah. God damn it, Randy Holden.
Okay,
I've got his solo record.
I'll tell Randy that you said that,
and it's very
that you messed him up.
Yeah, exactly. He'll be honored. Yeah, Randy Holden's or Randy Larson is. I talk to him on Facebook sometimes.
Yeah.
That's probably why I was thinking about that. But yeah, man, Scott Hill, the vocalist. I mean, he just sounds so ethereal. That's kind of his. Like it's. But it's like a breath. It's not like Bob Dylan kind of like what your impression was.
A bad impression.
But I don't know. It's just there's something like kind of immediate and kind of like timeless about the way Scott sings.
Yeah.
Like it's like warm and fuzzy and it just makes me feel good. I was mowing the lawn, listening to some of the newer Foo stuff, and I kind of just thought like, this is a band. I can see where like maybe people, don't get as excited about some of their records perhaps, but objectively, like, is anybody really miserable listening to Fu Manchu? Like if this was on and you were just like hanging out with people and it was in the background, like nobody's really unhappy.
No, and this is the first entrance of a Doom record into the series. That's not a complete miserable.
Yeah. It's
like, this is, you can go like play this in a boombox on the beach, hanging out with your buddies kind of thing.
Yeah, it's surfing, skateboard music.
I can't think of a whole lot of contemporary music that has that vibe either.
Yeah.
It's not like weird pop music that I don't really pay attention to, but
I mean, Queens flies this flag, obviously, and Nebula and a few of those others that are kind of connected in a weird way to what Foo's doing and stuff. And I'm not going to say that Foo invented this because I think, they're neck and neck, obviously, with Caius and Monster Magnet, and they're kind of the forebears of that.
Predates them a little bit.
Yeah, I think Weindorf's the oldest of those guys.
Yeah.
But
yeah. He's much, Weindorf, I think, is much more psychedelic 60s than these guys are. Much more just like beach bum.
Yeah, these guys in
Stoners.
Caius are sunny,
Yeah.
You know, they're maybe not as
Well,
deserty.
Fu's the beach, and then Caius and
the desert.
You know,
Yeah,
the desert.
exactly.
So.
But it's like a Southern California, Southwest aesthetic,
Yeah.
you know, or something like that. Ruben, we'll talk about him in a second. I mean, his fills are on point on this record. This is his last Fu performance, at least on this.
This was their third.
Yep,
third record.
And we'll go through the history here in a second, and then you get tasty Eddie Glass leads near the end, but it's very restrained, you know.
Dr. Nebula himself.
Yeah, and it's all about the glacial riffs here, and so I mean that's you know
the fucking guitar tone. I mean the big muff, whatever I'm not sure what they
so
use,
fucking
but
thick.
it's that's pretty great. At least the first three records, the tone is just spot on. They get a little more poppy-ish, less kind of like...
I think they're still okay on Action Is Go. I think that's still got a good tone.
It's a little cleaner though.
It's definitely cleaned up production wise. This is thick. This is the thickest they get. This and maybe like their debut you know, has some of the kind of heaviest guitar tone, but basically let me run down the history.
Hey, let's do it.
So they form in 1985, well, some component of them, as a hardcore punk band called Virulence. And Virulence featured Scott Hill on guitars, Mark Abshire on bass, Ruben Romano on drums, and Ken Pucci on vocals.
Good name.
I think. Yeah. And then Abshire would leave and sort of come back on and off. Pucci leaves and was replaced by a guy named Glenn Chivens after Virulence released their debut.
Pucci and Chibbins?
Yeah,
Sounds like
Chivens. Yeah,
Eastern European meat dish or something.
And so, if This Isn't a Dream is the only Virulence release that's put out in 1989, we'll hear a pair of tunes from Virulence in a moment and kind of get into that. And then, basically, they changed their name in 1990 to Fu Manchu, and they release the Kept Between Tree 7-inch, and that's when Chivens leaves, and Scott, who is already playing guitar at that point, basically is like, well, I'll just move over to vocals and try it out, kind of a, you know, Vincent Cavanaugh kind of thing. Like, I'm already here. You know, let's kind of do it. Yeah, it worked out all right. And then they bring in a second guitarist at the time, a guy named Scott Vautow. Vautow? Yeah. And they record 3 7-inches in 1992. Some pretty funny names. There's like, some of this stuff is, God, you can find it on... I don't know if I have their discography in front of me, but they just put out kind of a collection. Actually, recently came out with like all of their more recent stuff, or I'm sorry, all of their early stuff.
What, Fu Manchu?
Yeah, it's.
I was looking up the name origins outside of the mustache.
Yeah, I'm not sure on that one either. If you find something, but yeah, they just put out. It's called Return to Earth. And it's 1991 to 1993. It's like kind of all their stuff. But I mean, they had, you know, songs, Don't Bother Knocking, If This Van's Rockin', Pick Up Summer, Pin Buster, Senioritis, Space Sucker, just fun kind of stuff that was kind of going on like that. And so they're putting out a lot of kind of 7-inches and things like that. And then Scott Vautow was the guitar player, and he leaves after those 3 7-inches, and he's replaced by a new lead guitar player who had drummed for a band called Olive Lawn, and that guy's name is Eddie Glass. And pretty much now you've got the Fu. You've got Ruben on drums, Mark on bass, Scott on guitars and vocals, and now you got Eddie playing lead guitar. And they'll start, you know, playing a lot of shows. In fact, their first live show was opening for St. Vitus, and they did a cover of Space Truckin' from Deep Purple, which Mark and I were kind of talking before we kind of started the show, but Space Truckin's almost like a perfect like thesis statement for like what these guys are. Now, they don't have an organ player like John Lord, but they sort of just feel like what that song is. Yeah. That's like what every Fu song is, you know. The thing that's really kind of interesting about them is, you know, you mentioned Blue Cheer, obviously Sabbath, you know,
sure,
Cream, Grand Funk Railroad, Blue Oyster Cult.
They started as a power trio, didn't they?
Who's that?
Fu Manchu? Or they was a 4-piece?
Nope, they're 4-piece.
Okay.
Yeah, they're 4-piece. Yeah, I mean, there might have been some period in between before Eddie joined again after Scott Vautow left. But yeah, they pretty much had 2 guitar players for most of the time. They were also pretty influenced by like early Soundgarden and early Helmet. They were into like Laughing Hyenas and Melvins and Voivod and Tad, like those early Tad records and stuff.
Laughing Hyenas is Detroit, right?
I think so.
John Brannon from Negative Approach.
Is it? Is he in Laughing Hyenas? Yeah. Okay. Well, the band, I saw a really cool YouTube interview, and if you sort of just Google like Fu Manchu interviews, you'll probably run across it on YouTube, and it was from, I think it was from January of this year, and it was a guy who was also like a Southern Cal kind of punk rocker that knew Scott from back in the Virulence days when they were kind of, doing punk rock and hardcore and some of that kind of stuff. And he basically said like Black Flag was like the key for everything. He said Black Flag and Blood were the two bands that sort of changed his life when he saw them live. He said Black Flag, like just the aesthetic that they were going for. And he says like, even like stuff like, here we go. I think I had a pretty good quote somewhere on it if I can kind of find it. But he kind of talked about how, shit. Oh, okay. Here we go. Got it. So this is from Scott Hill. He says, "We love to be loud, stage volume, full stacks, the whole thing." He says, they used to practice in the same space that No Doubt was practicing in when they were like a punk rock band and stuff like that. But basically the three bands that they were probably most influenced by were Black Flag, SSD, which is Society System, Decontrol, and then BL'AST. And BL'AST is recently reformed with, because of the reissue, and we'll talk about BL'AST here in a moment, but with Nick Olivieri and Joey Castillo in the band. And
Joey Castillo is a drummer in Queens, right?
Yeah, and Danzig and Sugartooth. Which is, I love Sugartooth.
He was like the drummer. Did you go to that Grand Rapids show to see Queens?
I think so. Yeah, back in the day.
The Reptile House or whatever the hell that place was. Because he was playing, it was like Songs of the Deaf era.
I saw him on Songs of the Deaf with that chef, Forrest, up in Mount Pleasant. I thought we saw him in like
I saw him in Grand
St.
Rapids.
Andrews. I think we saw him in St. Andrews.
Maybe I went with somebody else, but I remember seeing him because I think the first time I was like, oh, is that the dude from, because I think he was playing on Danzig stuff before that.
Yeah, I think he was on Post 4. I think he replaced Chuck Biscuits.
He was on Black Acid Evil or whatever.
Yeah, Black Acid Devil or whatever that was. But yeah, basically, Poison Idea was another big band. Articles of Faith. He basically said
like all Mark II hardcore stuff.
Huh?
Like Mark II stuff.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. Say it's what he listens to when he's writing Foo records are those. So he's listening to Black Flag and things like that. He's not listening to like, he basically says he doesn't want to steal from like Cactus or Sir Lord Baltimore like consciously. So he doesn't like listen to that stuff when he's like trying to write. Do you know what I mean? Like he's very aware that like people are going to accuse me of ripping off these kind of bands, so I'm actually going to go back to...
They have a very specific sound, too, so
yeah, exactly. He basically said he doesn't want... no threat of me ripping them off if I just listen to Black Flag and stuff like that, but he said Greg Ginn's his favorite guitar player, and he says Damage is his favorite album. He says that's the heaviest album I own. And he said without his playing, I wouldn't be in a band. And he said seeing BL'AST play live changed him. It convinced him that slower could actually be heavier. And so he was into like fast-paced kind of hardcore stuff. And then when he saw BL'AST perform live and he heard the like opening kind of bass parts of the song we're going to play. Let me pull this back up. Which is Only Time Will Tell from the Blood record in 1987, which actually it wasn't called Blood back then. It was called It's in My Blood. Yeah. And then they re-recorded this. All right, well, let me back up. So
2013 is Blood with an exclamation point?
Yeah. So basically, not the version we're going to play. So we're actually going to play the newer version, which is kind of interesting because I thought it was a cool talking point. Around 2013, the original guitar player for this BL'AST band that kind of had a huge input on Fu Manchu, Mike Nieder, he contacted Southern Lord because he had found some master tapes in a storage locker. And so Greg Anderson was a huge BL'AST fanatic. And the tapes were in pretty rough shape. So they contacted another BL'AST super fan by the name of Dave Grohl, perhaps you've heard of him, about mixing them at his 606 studio, which is where the Sound City consoles ended up.
Okay. The documentary.
And here's the crazy part about this particular version. This is why I wanted to play this version, because I think it's like this weird. This kind of blew me away when I found this out. Do you know who was in BL'AST for a brief moment? The second guitar player was William Duvall, who's
From
now
Alice
the
in Chains.
fucking lead singer of Alice in Chains.
Well,
and he was
what
in a
was he
band
in?
called Neon Christ
Okay,
at one point.
I've heard that part. I didn't know.
So he was
in
with
BL'AST.
BL'AST for a while. He played a lot of live shows, but he never actually got like the studio shit he was on ended up like not ending up on the If It's in My Blood.
Yeah.
So I thought it'd be cool just because like we've been talking about Alice in Chains. And it's such like a weird like what the fuck? Like
It's funny.
I did not know that guy was a guitar player before he was just like a vocal. Because does he play guitar?
Yeah.
He probably plays with Alice in Chains.
Yeah, he always plays guitar
Because
with
Lane played. Yeah, because I've
Yeah.
seen him twice with William Duvall. So
Yeah.
I guess
He's
that
always
makes
playing
sense.
rhythm and stuff.
Yeah, I mean Lane did a little bit too sometimes, like
They also-
kind of like Chris did.
BL'AST also did a split with I Hate God in 2016.
I know. It's wild. So yeah, small world, right? But yeah, like and this BL'AST tune you're gonna hear, which is only time will tell, like killer bass, especially that intro, real heavy sludge vibes. You know, you can kind of hear it there that this is a band that probably alongside the Melvins and maybe that, you know, famous side B of Black Flag's
My War.
Yeah. You know, this could have definitely pushed the sludge kind of thing a bit. And then it kind of goes into like sort of trippy Bad Brains-esque kind of leads, and it really kind of is like a noisy like am rep kind of sound to it
For sure.
and stuff too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought it was a kind of a cool talking point before we sort of, you know, launch full scale into the Foo stuff to sort of hear some of this kind of BL'AST, you know, stuff. So technically it was recorded in 87, but it's released in 2013. And the other thing we're going to hear in this kind of first, you know, set of music too, before we kind of get full scale into the Foo, is a pair of Virulence tunes. And I thought, you know, where these guys kind of came from, being that Ruben and Eddie sort of came from them, you know, a pair of tunes to give you a sense of the origin points, because you can hear the punk roots, the hardcore roots, but you can also hear where like Fu Manchu is going to sort of grow out of a band like Virulence. And yeah, I think Virulence, weren't you saying, I think a collection has come out.
I thought I looked it up on YouTube. I didn't. I would assume somebody would have at this point, but
Yeah, I think it's
who
called
knows?
If This Isn't a Dream, 1985 to 1989.
Full discography.
Yeah, I just don't know who put it out. Oh, Southern Lord.
Okay.
Looks like Southern Lord put it out in 2010. So yeah, I haven't picked that up yet. I'll have to grab that. But yeah, Pucci, Hill, Romano. Yep, all those guys. So we're going to hear a pair of tunes from them, Blank Stare and Dead Weight. And what I said about Blank Stare was I said it's almost got like kind of an industrial vibe near the beginning, before this really kind of heavy early Melvins kind of vocal sludge kind of crash comes in. So obviously, like, you know, the way Scott sings in Fu Manchu, that wasn't the way that this original vocalist, God, I forgot his name already. Pucci. Yeah, Pucci. I just think wasn't Pucci the
Simpsons dog?
the Simpsons dog that they introduced on Itchy
the
and Scratchy?
sunglasses.
Yeah. So, this is what I'm thinking. Sorry about that. If you're out there listening as a patron, which you probably are not. And by the way, welcome our new patrons. This is our first show for several people to hear our new patron stuff. So we're not forgetting you, but you know we know you already know because you're getting this episode exclusively. But yeah, and then the Melvins would be, I think, a foundational base for what Virulence was sort of doing. But you can tell that this comes out of the Cali punk hardcore scene and not like the Pacific Northwest too. There's something still a little bit brighter about this than what you would have heard on like early Melvin stuff, Gluey Porch Treatments and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You can hear the Black Flag, Dead Kennedys kind of slowed down a little bit, almost like slowed down DRI, Suicidal Tendencies riffs kind of in there too.
There's a little Poison Idea.
Yeah, a little bit of
there,
that
but
too.
Poison Idea was, I mean, they're a Portland band, but they didn't really sound like anybody else at the time. They were kind of like a weird band out of time.
Yeah, for
They
sure.
sound like they should have probably come out about 5-6 years earlier. But
Yeah, they were a little more fierce. What did you say about Blank Stare? Do you have much to say about that one?
I put Husker Du, Fugazi,
Oh yeah,
post punk.
yep.
I've said the singer at times actually sounds a little bit like John Bush.
Oh shit,
It might be because I've just been
you were rocking out some.
some Bush era Anthrax.
Yeah.
I put a little Amoebix Ishii. I think just the kind of like
Yeah, maybe something from that kind
the
of
loopy
anarcho.
kind of drummy thing happening.
Yeah, I could see that, or even rudimentary.
Yeah.
Peni a little bit too. Yeah. Then you get Dead Weight, and I think that one's more where the reason I sort of decided to throw this in, I think I kind of did it to Mark without forgetting to tell him that I'd updated.
Well, there's always one.
The play. Yeah, I always do that to Mark.
Drinking game.
You can hear this sort of definitely there. If you didn't hear it in the first tune, Blank Stare, here you can hear the Sabbath and Blue Cheer early in the tune. But to me, then the tune really gets weird. It gets closer to some weird amalgam of like early Soundgarden Melvins mixed with BL'AST that you'll hear at the beginning of the set, and even a little bit of like Voivod, Dykreitzen kind of stuff. It's definitely far too aggressive, I said, for the sun-baked, laid-back kind of attitude that Fu Manchu is going to sort of employ. It's a little too aggressive.
Yeah.
But again, in the early part, you can hear where like Ruben and Scott are leaning on some of the Blue Cheer Sabbathisms a little bit more and stuff like that. So I thought it'd be kind of a cool part to, before we dive into sort of building towards In Search Of, just to give a little bit of historical context and for people that might not know who BL'AST are or might not know pre-Fu Manchu sort of stuff. And we know obviously patrons, you're our most open-minded crew, so you'll be down for this, no matter what. So, but yeah, so let's get into it. This trio of tunes, and we'll come back and really sort of get into the early Fu albums. So we've got Only Time Will Tell from BL'AST, Blank Stare, and Dead Weight from Virulence from the If This Isn't a Dream compilation. Dead Weight, Blank Stare from Virulence. Then we kick things off with BL'AST. BL'AST. Only time will tell.
There might already be a band called BL'AST.
That maybe they were kind of
Perhaps.
sneaky around that a little bit. Yeah, so basically once you get to the Foo, which we've now made it to, Eddie Glass has joined. They've released a few 7-inches. Now we start to get to the records. And I was never super familiar with No One Rides for Free. I wish I was a little bit more, because what I listened to kind of prepping for this, I was like, oh, this is pretty fucking heavy. It's like one of the heaviest things they've done, especially the tune we're going to play, Ojo Rojo.
Yeah, I don't think I got this till pretty later.
So you have
later
you
on.
got around to this? Yeah, I picked up Daredevil real early in the 90s, and I think I never came across this record for some reason, But yeah, it comes out in 94 on Bong Load Custom Records. And I said this is really where the emphasis really shifts to this kind of 70s kitsch pop culture, I think I forgot to mention this, but like Scott grew up around surfing and skateboarding and dune buggies and all that kind of
Evil
stuff.
Knievel.
Yeah, and Brad Davis, who will join a little bit later, he still skateboards, and stuff.
I know a lot
So,
of dudes
like,
in their 50s that still skateboard.
yeah, which is cool.
Yeah.
So like there's something, and I think what happens, and I think we'll get into this a little bit more when we talk about In Search Of, which is coming up in 3 songs here. Like there was something happening for me when I got a hold of In Search Of and Daredevil in like 95, 96, I was really inspired by like this 70s aesthetic that was starting to come back,
Well, even like Cathedral was embracing it at that point too.
Yeah, Dazed and Confused was like my favorite movie at the time. It's still one of my favorite movies. Like, there was this like Quentin Tarantino was kind of bringing back some kind of 70s kind of vibes.
Jackie Brown brought some back in the...
For sure.
Yeah.
Beastie Boys did the Sabotage video, which at the time I thought was the epitome of like all music videos. I still think it's maybe my favorite video of all time. Spike Jonze directed that. And it was all 70s cop shows before like the Starsky and Hutch, like kind of kitsch reimagining
like
and
4 times now or something.
Yeah, and stuff. But it was so unique at that time. Now we live in a postmodern kind of meta, right? Like to me, there was something really unique pre-internet about like Beastie Boys Sabotage and like Weezer doing like the Happy Days kind of like video. Like that blew our fucking minds. We nowadays it's like everything's a joke. Like nothing's taken seriously. Nothing is like sacred. Everything's recycled.
People like stuff because it's stupid.
Yeah.
Which I don't... That's a weird thing for me to wrap my head around. Like, they don't necessarily like it. They like it because it's so stupid.
Yeah.
And it's like, I like dumb stuff, but I don't treat it like dumb stuff. Like, I like, like shitty horror movies, but not because they're shitty, is because they were trying. And I like the vibe of... It's not just because they're absurd.
Sure.
But I know that kind of like vibe of we like stuff because it's absurd or stupid is a kind of a millennial thing.
And there's definitely a fine line between it, because like when it comes to like movie sort of stuff, like I can really get behind, and I could really defend like a movie like Hot Rod, which on its surface you could really like be like or like MacGruber, because I put those in the same category. Even Pop Star, all 3 of those movies to me have like a similar aesthetic,
but they're like they're farces. They're not.
Their commentary,
yes.
Yeah. There's something more there, even though there's no plot. And there's a plot to MacGruber, I guess, but but like there's something kitschy about it, but it was weird.
But there's more than just that.
Yeah,
there's like the kitschy entry point, like remember MacGyver, but then it's taken to a ridiculous level. But like structurally, it's done intelligently.
Yeah,
it's not just some dumb thing with like, hey, we've got a cat in a diaper farting and saying hi and jumping around. Like there's just some stuff now that's so...
Watch that video. I don't know what that is, but
I don't either.
You've sold it.
But it seems like the TikTok shortening of our attention span kind of thing, where it's just like, I like watching this bug dance around on the screen, or what just dumb shit. Like I want more. I want there to be more behind what I'm interested in.
Yeah.
Than just like this guy fell down and this is what happened because of it. I want there to be like, this is like a commentary on this thing that happened here or whatever. Just not just because it's look at that, isn't that funny? It's like the Chris Farley, hey, remember that?
Hey, remember that?
Oh, yeah, man.
Well, I think like for me, when it comes to like, comes to that style, I guess, of like recycling or commentarying on things like, and I've probably used this metaphor before, or this, I don't know if metaphor, but these examples before in some Requiem episode at some point. But to me, like, there's a distinct difference between shows like, Big Bang Theory and like Community or Rick and Morty. Because Rick and Morty and Community are made by like smart people that know, they actually understand what they're mocking.
Yeah.
Because they're people like you and I who came out of bathing themselves in like 80s and 90s pop culture because they grew up in it. They grew up in front of MTV. They grew up with VCRs and renting movies.
But they're using it as a narrative device too.
Exactly. And they're kind of breaking it apart and like dissecting it in really interesting ways instead of like, hey, here's this Star Trek joke. Here's this joke about comics. Here's this here's this joke about autism. Hey, here, like I watched Big Bang Theory for a couple of years, so I'm not just, and I chuckled, and then at a certain point I woke up and
it's
it
the
was
lowest
like,
common denominator.
Whoa,
yeah,
what the fuck am I watching? And it was like maybe when Community came out, it like really woke me up, and I kind of realized like, oh fuck, okay, so like Community is a show made by nerds for nerds, and Big Bang Theory is a show made not by nerds, mocking nerds, but they think it's like for nerds.
Yeah.
But I don't really know anybody that truly, like us, embraces what I would consider true nerd culture, that watches Big Bang Theory and is like, oh, I totally relate.
Well, I think the thing is that everything that we grew up with as a fringe culture in the 80s became, because this is I've heard it, other people say the same thing, but I was like, that's exactly right. Like Alex Kurtzman and J.J. Abrams were like the popular jock kids that figured out, like, co-opted this stuff and made it popular to, they knew how to say the right things to the executives for them to like spend $200 million on a Star Trek movie. When before that, Star Trek was low budget. Yeah. It was about ideas. It wasn't about action and explosion and romance, whatever bullshit they put on the screen. Sure. Or like the, like Family Guy. I remember seeing, I did a podcast years ago called Art and Story.
Yeah.
About comic books. And we interviewed Bill Ratner, who played Flint on G.I. Joe, the voice actor. And I remember right before or right after that interview, I saw some clip from Family Guy where Flint was just taking a shit.
Yes, in the bathroom.
I was like, that's not a joke. It's a non sequitur.
It's a non sequitur,
but not a good non sequitur. You can do it well, but that's just stupid.
Family Guy had some moments. Like I liked the show when it first came out when we were in college, because I was like, oh, I've never really seen a show like this, but it kind of wore itself thin. I actually preferred American Dad in terms of like writing and cleverness a little bit more.
I actually really like the Orville. I don't know if you've seen that, but he writes and directs that, and that's so much.
The Star Trek kind of thing, right?
It's basically like Next Generation instead of the awful stuff that Kurtzman's doing right now with Discovery and whatever else is happening. But
the Picard thing too.
I think it had something to do with it. They're all just they just destroy the character. It's like shitting on your dad or something. It's just bad. But the Orville is like, it's sincere. There's some like goofy references, but it feels like earnest. It doesn't feel like, hey, remember Flint from G.I. Joe? He just pooped.
Yeah.
Like, that's not a joke, dude. Like Optimus Prime with a boner or something. Like, it's just dumb. I don't know. I just, maybe it's because I had such a, like, those characters meant something to me. Sure. And I feel like they're just, like they wouldn't do that with a Dickens character.
Where their G.I. Joe characters is way more, like, it's made by people that actually understood G.I. Joe. And
and they're using them for what they are.
Yeah. There's reverence for it,
Yeah. It's not just hey, remember that crew.
And again, like I said, I think it is weird. I think sometimes when he does live action stuff, like I actually enjoy the first Ted for the most part. And I think there's actually some like, when you cut through like the crudeness, it's actually like got like a little bit of heart to it, like in terms of childhood and what your attachment. It's like
I never felt that with Family Guy though. Yeah. And it's like a Arrested Development kind of thing, like the guy not wanting to grow up. Like, metaphor for that.
I thought you were talking about the show. I was like, don't compare that to Family Guy. God, that's a sacred show.
And Ted's just like the loser friend that's holding him back kind of thing.
Absolutely. So it is weird, like how Fu Manchu and a lot of Monster Magnet did the same thing at this point, even Clutch to some extent.
Yeah.
You know, and they're singing about Planet of the Apes and like Monster Magnet's making all these like kind of kitsch references. It's like all of the culture, and a lot of it was, you know, not so much Fu Manchu, but I think maybe Monster Magnet was taking like, and Electric Wizard does it too, like B-movie horror stuff.
Cathedral,
yeah. and throwing all that stuff into a sort of a blender, and it was like, it was part of whatever this stoner doom, stoner rock kind of scene was, you know, and you've got spectrums of stoner doom, if you will, you know, Electric Wizard on one end, and probably the warmest end is your Fu Manchus and Nebulas. And this might not even be metal per se, but it's coming out of the same influences that all of those other bands did, but maybe they're just not going to the full level. But like, you can't hear the stuff that you heard there with, you know, Virulence and stuff and not think like, these guys weren't into heavy music. They were listening to Sabbath. They were listening to like all that same stuff. They just, you know, Wizard was probably listening to like Bathory though too. You know what I mean? Or Merciful Fate. And like these guys probably weren't. They were just like staying in the Black Flag and
they're
that
punk,
kind of,
punk guys.
They're punk kids. And so
punk guys, they would go back to Sabbath and, you know, Zeppelin and stuff, but it wouldn't usually go forward too much. Yeah,
they're almost like if, you know, Vitus didn't get heavier. I don't know, like early Vitus and some I mean, Vitus is just initially heavier. There's something innate, you know, in that. And I don't know, that was a weird comparison to make. I guess I was thinking because they both are like kind of California bands that came out of like punk era.
I think Vitus is more dirgy.
Yeah, they're definitely more depressing, and they're coming through a lot more like addiction and, you know, like things
they're
like
talking
that,
about personal stuff, and Fu Manchu's not.
It's
just like Cathedral never talked about, well, post Forest of Equilibrium, even Forest is kind of like nebulous subjects. It's never about like personal turmoil or anything. But like going later on where they, you know,
like End Time and stuff, I feel like, did they start to get more?
I don't know if it's
still like kind of just horror.
It seemed like bigger ideas about those types. It never seemed personal to me.
Yeah.
But all those, you know, like Urko's Revenge, like all the Planet of the Apes shit, the Hopkins Witchfinder made me go, you know, track down that movie and stuff, and it was
just
the
Blind Dead stuff that they were making references to.
Yeah, like all that stuff just seemed to be like stuff they cared about. It wasn't. I don't know. It wasn't like, it was like, hey, look what we like. It was just like part of the thing.
Sure.
Like the next lot. It's the only kind of music, I guess, outside of like Hooded Menace that really grabs onto one topic and can kind of hold on to it for a while.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know, I guess, you know, beyond the sort of 70s kitsch stuff, and I'm going to kind of get into like their lyrics and stuff a little bit more, especially like when we get to In Search Of, because I have a funny lens that we'll sort of look at some of the songs through, which has to do with cars. So we'll get there.
Not Leonard Nimoy?
Not
like his In Search Of show from the 70s?
Oh, no.
You never watched that show?
I remember references to it, but no,
You talk about Bigfoot and stuff in it?
It
had a really creepy
opener. Did it on Simpsons.
It's been parodied
Leonard
a lot.
Nimoy would come on and do like his kind of In Search Of, kind of, you know, what's in the mist. Yeah, it was almost like Unsolved Mysteries or something.
Yeah, he would come on and then they do little segments. He'd narrate.
Yeah, I think I was too young for it, but I know the references to it. But I guess let's unpack something before we do a dive into Foo. And I guess for any of our patrons who maybe are unfamiliar with the stoner rock, stoner doom, stoner metal genre, which, you know, really had its heyday in the 90s, especially the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, probably petered out around 2002, 3, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's still around, but I just think it, like, for us, it kind of became a little bit, like, saturated, you know? I mean...
yeah, for sure. It was like what black metal... I mean, all the like, death metal hit a certain kind of, like, fever pitch, and then...
Sure.
Black metal, the same thing. This did it.
I mean, I guess, like, how would you describe that to people? I guess, you know, who were like
stoner rock thing.
Yeah, I guess, like what you know, besides Sabbath being sort of the common point, you know,
because it kind of, none of the labels were particularly big that were starting it, but it was like a subgenre that outside of, because what else did we really have, like with like indie rock as far as like underground music?
Yeah,
not including like, you know, jazz and stuff, but
sure.
like we had that, and then like as far as like rock went, outside of mainstream stuff at the time was like nu metal.
Yeah,
this was like a kind of like an antidote to some of that.
It was kind of retro, and it was fun listening. It was the kind of stuff like when you didn't want to play like death metal around people or like depressing shit. Like this,
but it still had like some.
But it had some balls
to
and
it,
you could put it. And I guess, I look at like Decibel did a issue a long time ago, and Albert, I don't have the issue. It's one of my 5 issues I'm missing. So if any of you have Decibel issues you want to.
Which issue?
I think it's 35. Yeah.
All right, people.
Yeah.
The Josh
so
Homme cover?
I can give you the ones I'm missing later, but it's almost like they took. They did a ranking of the top 20 stoner rock, stoner metal albums of all time, and they have Master of Reality from Sabbath #1, which makes sense because to me, you take Children of the Grave and Sweet Leaf, and in a lot of ways, like those 2 songs kind of like formulate the sort of stoner component and like the kind of catchy heaviness. Obviously, Sabbath already had that. Then you go into stuff that is far-ranging, like Dope Throne from Electric Wizard, Sleep, Jerusalem, because those are making drug references, but they're on the heavier end of stuff, right? Then you got obviously Blues for a Red Sun, Caius at number 4, and we've talked about Caius, in previous episodes, years and years ago. Black Sabbaths, and they're Queens of the Stone Age. I mean, I think of any of the bands that probably commercialized it, it's them. They're Absolutely. Like to me the most iconic on a commercial level of what they sort of did, and those
they broke through without like sacrificing anything too.
Yeah, and I mean those first 3 records, really 3 or 4 records, but especially those first 3, the self-titled, Rated R, and Songs for the Deaf are pretty. I mean, those are party records in the same way that like Appetite for Destruction or like the first Van Halen, like you just put those on and nobody's unhappy. For the most part, they're just like could be background, but you could also like listen to them and get something out of them because there's like, great riffs and stuff. Then you got, Blue Cheer, that Mark mentioned before. Trouble, to some extent they're on here. Would you put them in this category? That's one I don't know if I would agree with Decibel.
I don't like the term stone. I think the term stoner rock is stupid.
It's kind of
and limiting.
Yeah.
I mean, Trouble
they have psychedelic.
Weed.
They have psychedelic elements, but more like.
But they're a heavy metal band.
Those, yeah.
I don't know.
Melvin's Bullhead, yeah, maybe, I don't know. Hawkwind, Space Ritual, okay, yeah, sure, that's kind of fun. The band Masters of Reality, which Rick Rubin had Chris Goss, who would go on to produce like Caius and Queens of the Stone Age and things like that.
Okay.
Ginger Baker was on drums for that Masters of Reality. Did you know that?
No.
Oh yeah, that's a really fucking interesting record.
He's such a fucking sourpuss. I wouldn't think he'd want to do anything after.
Yep. Witchfinder General. They sing about drugs and things like that. Yeah. What was the one song I love where he's LSD, Free Country. Yeah, it's a great song. Spine of God, Monster Magnet's on there. Cathedral, Ethereal Mirror. St. Vitus, Born Too Late, definitely. Yeah. Sing about stuff like that. Leafhound, if you go back to proto-metal stuff. Grower of Mushrooms. The Obsessed, Lunar Womb, Wino, sure. Acrimony, that's actually a pretty good record.
That is a good record.
Tamuli, Shruma Room. I have that on vinyl upstairs. Yeah, peaceful. High on Fire, who grew obviously out of sleep. And then number 20, a record perhaps we might talk about later. Fu Manchu in Search of. So we'll bring that up. We'll bring up Nick Green's little review on that a little bit later. But
so they picked that without. We didn't know that, right?
Yeah, no, I didn't know that. Albert just literally emailed this to me today, and we've already sort of known.
I just kind of assumed this was like that's kind of like the record.
It's always really debated between this and Action Is Go. There's a lot of people that pick Action Is Go as the best record, and I get why. It's an easier sell. It's more of a Queens of the Stone Age kind of record.
I think I might listen to this one more though.
Daredevil, then the Action Is Go.
Than either one. Yeah, but I think this is like a great kind of like culmination of their sound.
There's a little bit too much sameness, and it's not enough like Sabbath bombast on Daredevil. But when we get to Coyote Duster and stuff, I mean, there's songs on there that fucking kill. Like I was listening to that this morning, taking a shower. I was like, yes, this is great. But No One Rides for Free. All right, it's muscle cars, drag racing, so there's a song on No One Rides for Free, like Mega Bumpers, about muscle cars.
Was it Cash, Grass, or Ass? Nobody rides for free?
Yep. Free and Easy, Summer Girls, which is, kind of captures that carefree Southern California sort of vibes. What is it? Mega Bumpers, I believe, is about
amusement park bumper cars.
No,
Bumpin' Uglies.
Oh, there's another song on there called Superbird, which we're not playing. And Superbird is about a spectator drag race with a Plymouth Superbird versus a Camaro. And then the song we're going to hear off of it, Ojo Roja, is about hot rods and drag racing. So, like, a lot of the songs we're going to be playing, and I happened to stumble on a really kind of happy accident from, I believe it's Monster Riff.
Is it a YouTube station or
it's just something it's Joshua Courtier wrote the article. I think it's just like kind of an online kind of thing. They do album reviews, concert reviews, interviews, rock history, listicles, podcasts, things like that. But about a month ago, almost literally a month ago, he published an article called Asphalt Rising, the high octane meanings behind Fu Manchu's lyrics, themes, and albums, June 2021. And he just said in the intro, he said, Fu Manchu is one of the most loved and revered 4-piece bands in the stoner rock world. Formed in 1985, they've released 12 studio albums, with their debut, No One Rides for Free, hitting the shelves in 1994. They have a loyal and devoted fan base that's drawn to them for their aggressive yet laid-back fuzz rock sound. The fans love the fun and simplicity of their songs, which are an excellent throwback to the instrumentation of 70s Sabbath and Blue Oyster Cult, while incorporating elements of modern punk. Their fans consist of rock and roll aficionados, heavy metal fans, skateboarders, and people from all walks of life. And so, this is, as a whole, stoner rock typically focuses on instrumentation, with lyrics tending to be more cryptic. There are some exceptions, such as Mastodon. I guess he considers them, they dip their toes, I get it, but they're beyond that,
and stoner rock?
Or doom rock. They have elements, and their guitar riffs and things like that, but they're like a prog.
I guess, yeah.
They're like if Monster Magnet was doing like prog rock or something, or I don't know. Caius was doing prog rock. Maybe I could see that. Yeah,
at this point, Mastodon's kind of just Mastodon.
They're just Mastodon. Yeah, exactly. They exist outside. But it says most stoner bands put instruments first and lyrics second. Fu Manchu are unique as their lyrics tell stories. They're typically based around drag racing, off-roading, skateboarding, and BMX. And although desert highways and muscle cars are stoner rock cliches, Fu Manchu takes it to another level. He says, I'm sure the average stoner rock fan knows that Fu Manchu has some interest in cars. Their album covers feature muscle cars, dune buggies, and rocker vans. But do they know what their songs are about?
Boogie vans, I think.
Means. Boogie van. I'll tell a Boogie van story later. Lyrical penner and vocalist Scott Hill is a true Southern California boy. Yeah, he grew up around hot rods, skateboarding, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
Surfing.
So the guy that wrote this article is a seasoned automotive journalist, and he's a huge Fu Manchu fan. And so he's going to sort of apply his knowledge of that. And he kind of talks about the antecedents of that, Beach Boys and Chuck Berry singing songs about cars. I mean, Maybelline's about a car, I Get Around's about a car, a lot of those kind of iconic tunes. Even Springsteen wrote about kind of stuff like that. So cars and the idea of movement has always represented freedom, which is a huge part I talk about in like blues songs. Blues songs, you couldn't afford cars, most of the blues artists in the 30s, but they did talk about suitcases and trains and this sort of constant state of movement. And when you get to like 1950s, like teen culture, the fact is you could buy a car, and this is in an Elvis documentary that I show kids in my class. You could walk out with a new car for $65.
Brand new car?
Yeah, like a certain type of model that was like doable.
What? Not a used car?
That's what they claim in
what year?
It's a History Channel documentary, like 54, 55. There was
that's like $5,000 now or something.
Yeah. So,
inflation maybe
that's crazy. So like a teenager's like cars for the first time. It was the first decade that teenagers could like separate from their parents. And so the idea of cars and being associated with teen culture, without going to war, without death, And 50s were so affluent, so you had more disposable income.
Sure.
Teenagers were kind of getting away from their parents, parking, they're discovering sexuality, they're discovering their own music.
Well, and they're getting out of the city and living in suburbs.
Yes, in suburbs, you escape to the parking, this kind of culture of that a little bit.
Yeah.
And so, it's always been associated with kind of like the roots of rebelliousness and rock and roll. And so it's cool that they're kind of singing about that, but in a very much like a 70s aesthetic, kind of like my dad, Pete Hundy, he probably identifies, he doesn't know it, but I bet if I gave him Fu Manchu, he'd be like, I like all these songs.
Oh yeah, man, the Dusters.
I get what this reference is. This is about a Plymouth fucking 62 that I fucking stole some beer in, blah blah. Like I should do a Patreon show where I just play clips of my dad, because it's pretty extraordinary. But yeah, so that's all kind of happening on this record, and the guy that produced it was actually Caius drummer Brant Bjork. So he actually produced this debut record, and I just said it's really hard to be depressed and angry in that environment. Like it's why MC5 couldn't do Flower Power, because they were coming out of Detroit. It was same with Velvet Underground. Like they're not. No one in like New York City in the 60s wanted to take like LSD and stare at like hookers and drug dealers and like decrepit streets, and like Soho and stuff. You go to fucking California for that shit, and if you grow up in that stuff, like your environment is like happy-go-lucky a little bit more. I'm not saying you don't have problems, but it's just
there's a veneer of it. At least
it's sunnier problems,
Yeah. You don't have to worry about rain.
Yeah, exactly. And so when
cold.
you get to stuff like Oja Roja, it's kind of getting into that a little bit. And so that's their debut, and we'll play a song off that, and we'll talk about the song in a second, but I'll kind of set up Daredevil, which is their second record. And that, to me, 95, Daredevil comes out. Sound really coalesces here. It's got a lot more of the laid back attitude that you'll come to like expect from there later on. It's less like in your face, like No One Rides for Free is. Stuff like Travel Agent and Coyote Duster that we're gonna play is just spot on. Those are kind of two of the highlight tracks for me. I said it's bathed in sunlight beyond a few high points. There's the problem that Fu Manchu has on maybe these early records, and I think they kind of lock in on In Search Of and Action Is Go, is they sort of have non-existent choruses sometimes. They're just like songs that sort of float by. And
that's a lot of it.
They're like kind of unmemorable, but I think they finally start to learn those kind of hooky aspects a little bit more on In Search Of and Action Is Go.
Yeah.
If there's one like critique of Daredevil, and I love Daredevil, but that might be something I would say is,
that could be a critique of their whole career is there's a lot of sameness.
Yep. Yeah.
Sure. AC/DC and their sameness.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the
Which,
kind of,
I don't know how you really, like, it's fine what they do. They don't, I don't want them to do like Hawkwind or anything.
Yeah, no, but it's also like, this is the kind of record you could put on like around a campfire while everybody's getting stoned. And like,
it's not music that demands your attention.
Yeah, chilling on a beach.
It's like atmospheric kind of,
playing
party
video
music.
games. Smoking.
I think it's like the perfect soundtrack to like watching Evel Knievel go over a fucking gorge.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
It's like kind of like teenage emotions where like big stuff happens for a second, the next minute it's
no big deal. Landed that trick.
Yeah. Let's party.
Holy shit, man. You just fucking crashed your bike trying to do that flip. Like, let's go fucking do something else.
Yeah. Like pushing physical limits and stuff as a kid. And
have you seen that movie that Jonah Hill directed about the skateboarding kids?
No, I've heard about it. But
it's actually really good.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of like captures like mid-90s. I think it's called mid-90s, isn't it? I'm trying to remember. But it's cool. It's about like a little middle school kid who like befriends some high school kids and is trying to like be cool around them and stuff.
Yeah.
It's kind of like has a little bit of the kids vibe minus like the gross sex.
Okay.
I mean, there is actually a little bit of gross sex, but
minus
not as much AIDS and gross sex there. But cool soundtrack. It's kind of its time, but Jonah Hill, you can tell, made it with like a lot of personal. Like he was part of that culture.
How old is he?
I think he's probably my age, if I'm being honest.
40?
So he's probably like was in high school, right, in 95, when that movie kind of is about and stuff. But yeah, they toured with Monster Magnet on the Daredevil record when it was Super Judge. And so that kind of got them a lot of exposure through, because that was a pretty big record.
Yeah, it was a really
major
big record.
label, A&M and all that kind of stuff.
That was big in like the skate culture as well.
Yep. And then that's what sort of gets them to sign with Mammoth Records, and then that's when they're going to release In Search Of. And we'll talk more about like the In Search of record kind of when we sort of come back. But let's kind of set up this next set of music here. Let me get to my notes here. Ojo Rojo.
And it's something red, right?
Something red, yeah. Ojo.
Spanish?
Yeah, I know Italian, but yeah, Spanish not hitting me. But yeah,
Rojo's
Rojo's red.
I've got the internet at my fingertips here.
Oh my God, we can look that up. It's about hot rods and drags. It rips your head off with that kind of... I don't. Do you remember the band Tear Gas?
But the, like...
It's a black cover. Mike got us really into it.
Yeah, were they from Scotland or Ireland or something?
Yeah, and then they became the backup band for
Red Eye is what it means.
Oh, Red Eye. Okay.
Yeah.
They became the backup band for Alex. He was like a glam dude around the time of like Bowie and T-Rex.
Alex somebody?
Oh shit. They call me the Midnight Moses is the song. Hang on, I'll look it up right now. Good thing this is a Patreon
this guy
show.
UK?
Alex Harvey.
Oh,
so it's cool. I'll play it for you in between. But Tear Gas broke up and became his backup band.
okay.
So like the Alex Harvey shit is like fucking got some balls. But the riff in this is the same riff for Love for Sale from Tear Gas, which go Google that. It's cool stuff. They lock into a killer groove with those hammer-ons, and you're in for a web of full-on proto-metal assault. I can kind of draw connections with like early Mountain and Bang and some of those kind of bands on this.
There's even like a little southern rock, desert rock vibe to it.
Absolutely. But when that chug starts at like the 225, I said the formula is set for Fu Manchu, and you kind of feel something glorious when Scott yells, "KC, here I come," and it's basically like when he does that, "Here I come." That's Scott. That's like everything.
That's his phrase.
That's his like, yeah, man. He's gonna kind of do it. And Coyote Duster. This is outside of songs on In Search of. Coyote Duster is my favorite Fu Manchu song.
Kind of has all the traits right there.
Man, it's just, yeah. I just said take that proto metal, that kind of Sabbath punk. Add some grunge. Add some rich vocal hooks, add some drama and tension, and then let like Ruben and Eddie really stretch out their wings, and with fills and mini leads. There's all kinds of mini
good
leads
solo
here.
in there too. Yeah, at the end.
This is where I think Eddie really starts to become his own, and you can almost see like a song like this is like the pre-formation of the shit he's gonna do on Nebula, where it's a little bit more freeform and just kind of like lots of little fills and things like that. It's organic. I just said the leads slay and the main riff, fill, and chorus are so great. The song's title is a pun. Coyote refers to the performance package of a Mustang, Mark.
Oh.
And Duster is to either
Plymouth
beat
Duster?
someone at something or refers to a Plymouth Duster. So the narrator of the song could be beating a Mustang with his Plymouth Duster.
My mom had a Plymouth Duster.
There you fucking go, man. See, I told you this is going to be a personal...
She had a red Plymouth Duster that my dad fucking wrecked.
Oh, shit. I'm trying to think. I got to do... My dad had an El Camino at one point, which, God...
I've always wanted an El Camino.
It was fucking sweet. I was in the car with my dad one time, and this is a Fu Manchu kind of story. And he was like, "You want to see something fucking cool?" And I was like, "Sure." So he whipped around a corner, and he did like a spin.
Did he pull a handbrake?
Into like a fucking parking spot.
Nice.
On the snow. So like he purposely knew, but he knew how to control the spin, so he would spin it backwards and slide into a fucking
Parallel
parking
park it?
spot. Yeah. I was like, if people don't know, my dad was a race car driver and truck driver, and he's 110% more badass than I'll ever be, but that's okay. But he's like Matthew McConaughey in Days Confused, grown up with like kind of semi-responsibility. So, but yeah, so I think that's what the song's all about. So, and then we got a pair of tunes from In Search of, and we'll talk about Regal, Begal, and Redline when we come back, and then we'll kind of set up In Search of. But let's get into the tunes here. Let's get into the Foo for people that don't know the Foo. So we got Ojo Rojo from No One Rides for Free, Coyote Duster from Daredevil, their second record, and then the centerpiece that we'll be focused on for most of the rest of the show, which is In Search of, with Regal, Begal, and Redline.
it up. 101 Kansas City. Here I come. The meter said 195. Hey ladies,
That was Redline, Regal Begal, both from In Search Of. And then we started with Coyote Duster and Ojo Rojo. It's fun. It rolls off the tongues. Rolls off the tongue, yo. So here's a decibel. Here's a good friend of the podcast who we last heard from, I believe, on the soundtracks, the 90 soundtrack episode.
Dr. Nick Green.
Dr. Nick Green, yes, in fact.
He did a nice Fudge Tunnel
Hate
songs piece recently.
Yeah. I like Nick has similar tastes to some of the weird shit like I was into before I like met you guys, like Melvin's, but he's also into some of the heavier stuff too.
Yeah.
But he's also
unabashed
not into
what
some
he
of the
likes.
stuff we are as well.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah, he's just kind of like, he's into what he's into. But he says, Fu Manchu hasn't been the same since Ruben Romano and Eddie Glass separated the seeds from the stems and decided to set up a rival dealership in Nebula. The group's third full-length record is a surprisingly business-like affair with only one song, Neptune's Convoy, that creeps above the 5-minute mark. Scott Hill's lyrics about muscle cars, extraterrestrials, and digging chicks take the stereotypical SoCal burnout mentality and push it to cartoonish extremes. While most of In Search Of is basically just a rockin' repurposing of Sabbath riffs, Strato-Streak is so blindingly perfect that it remains the centerpiece of the group's sets over a decade later. I'll get to Strato-Streaks later, but I can tell you that was a song I was obsessed with in high school. Like, I played it over and I thought about it. I had dreams about playing that song live. And there's really only a couple songs that ever happened. Thumb from Caius. I had these like dreams sometimes of like playing a school assembly and just getting like everybody in the school assembly who maybe didn't give a shit about me to be like bobbing their heads, like, and like having this singular shared moment where like everybody just felt like being at like a.
Was it successful in your dream?
Yeah. I think
because mine were always like, oh, here,
abject failure.
You can play bass, right? It's like, sure. And I'm on bass, but I have no fucking idea what I'm doing. And I wake up just as I'm failing hard.
Yeah.
So you can see our different personalities coming through.
That's so funny. Oh, shit. Shit. What was I going to say? Oh, I had a cool quote here that I forgot to sort of share. This is, so In Search Of, now that we're there, they signed with Mammoth Records, like I said. And this is definitely the most gearhead-centric album. The cover, obviously, is iconic. A drag race between a Ford Mustang and a Chevy Chevelle.
With a hot chick.
Yeah, with a hot chick who's wearing like a tank top or something, right? Or a bikini top. She's ready.
Bikini top and some jeans.
She's ready to party at the beach. Yep. It's it's one of the masterpieces of stoner metal or desert rock or whatever you want to call this. Fuzzy guitars, Scott vocals at their most chill, probably the most high octane drumming that they ever got from Ruben. Every song on the album references sort of cars. Classic rock Metal Hammer Louder did a feature on 10 essential stoner rock albums, and this made the 10 essential thing. And Malcolm Dome wrote a little piece on it. People know Malcolm Dome. He's the bald guy with glasses
with the fucking bizarre as fuck teeth.
Yeah, but he's super excited, and he's always in like
he's like in no album stuff all the time.
Yeah, he's in punk documentaries sometimes too, and metal and things like that. But
he was from Krang originally. Is that what it was?
I think so? Yep. Yeah, because this is our Metal Hammer is what he's doing for here. But yeah, Krang, probably Metal Hammer, some of the same people. One of those bands who are always regarded as prime movers in stoner music, Fu Manchu have never really delivered a classic record. This one, though, came close. With Eddie Glass and Ruben Romano making their farewells before quitting to start Nebula, the band had a decisive edge. Here they conquered a predilection for overindulgence and in the process avoided the lack of focus that undermined what could be achieved. The band never again got this close to achieving their potential. It's debatable, but it's kind of, I get what he's kind of saying there a little bit. There's a great quote I was going to mention before. I think I have it here. Oh, from Bob Bulk, who will become the guitar player, I think, after Action Is Go. Or maybe Action Is Go I think he's the guy that replaces Eddie.
Bob Bulk?
Yeah, Bob Bulk. Yep. So I think he's on Action Is Go. So he's been with them the whole time. And he's in a bunch of interviews today. So he's kind of one of the people. But he has this great quote that I think sums up like what Fu Manchu's kind of all about. He says, if Beavis and Butthead can't sing the riff on their couch, it's not good enough for Fu Manchu. Yeah. So that's kind of what they're sort of going for. And then Jeff Turek from Treble Zine, I did some research and found this. He said, California riffmongers Fu Manchu lived a past life as a punk band called Virulence, a name that likely would have transferred just fine into metal should they have chosen to walk the left-hand path. Rather than dive head-on and horns first into thrash or death metal, however, the band cranked up the big muffs and orange amps and instead sought refuge in the sounds of vintage and proto-metal, such as Blue Cheer or the gods of all things heavy, Black Sabbath. In Search Of is a bit like what an entire album's worth of Sweet Leaves might sound like, and it's pretty badass. The fuzz is thick and burly, the rhythm's slow and grooving, and presumably the substances behind it are all California grown. All that's missing is the Stars and Stripes headband and the airbrush wizard. So, a couple little write-ups on
Sums up pretty
Search
good.
Of. So I guess...
Yeah, Fu Manchu's when they toured, they should have drove around in a van with a wizard on the side of it.
Yeah, no shit. Yeah. It's really funny. I was listening to, I think it was Pure Cinema podcast, and they were doing an episode, I think it's the guys from the New Beverly Cinema out that Tarantino's kind of a big part of out in LA. They curate a bunch of film festivals and different things like that. So it's the guys work there, and then they host this podcast. And they had they were talking about Mike McFadden's book, the teen comedy book and stuff, and they were kind of like segmenting those kind of movies into movies that reference like vans. And so they have like a subgenre of movies that have like boogie vans, or like vans that are like have stuff like airbrushed on the side as like a minor plot point. And then they were like, there was like subcategorizing ones that like feature a nerd, ones that, and it was a pretty interesting discussion, but I didn't realize there was a whole subgenre of like teen movies in the 70s, not so much the 80s, that were sort of centered around van orientated stuff. That one
van was like the affordable RV.
Yeah, well,
but also there was
you could bang in the back.
Well, yeah, you put they have shag carpet and stuff inside there.
Like,
and you could if you
smoke back there, you could put surfboard. I mean,
there was a whole
it's kind of like a little mini camper.
Yeah, really. I think on Prime there's this whole. I started watching it, turned it off because it was so bad. But it's just all about van culture.
Okay.
And it started out, I thought it was going to be like started out with Fu Manchu-ish kind of stuff, and all these like weird throwback dudes like hanging out on the beach in their van, and then it became like weird Midwest people design like turning their vans into like it was just like okay.
That's not what I'm into. Yeah, I want the boogie van.
Yeah, the weird like hedonists or whatever hanging out and doing their shit in the van, not like weekend warrior van people that we like. We're Irish, so we have Irish themed van. And I was like, oh, God, kill yourself.
How did you discover Fu Manchu? What's your entryway? Because I know mine, but I
honestly don't remember. I think it was probably
was it through metal people or Maniacs?
I think it was through some like metal thing. Like were they in any movies soundtracks?
I don't think so. Not the way other bands were in that era. Because I think they were too small. I honestly don't remember. Yeah. I think it might have had something to do with skateboarding or were guys you were hanging out with in high school into stuff like this much? I could see them like Fu Manchu being like the soundtrack to a skate video. Okay. Or something. Yeah, maybe they were in a skate video. I honestly don't remember where I first came across them. So I was reading Rolling Stone magazine when I was cool in high school and had a subscription to Rolling Stone magazine. Baller. I was a real baller. I also had a subscription to Details magazine. Do you remember that magazine? Little men's magazine? Oh, yeah. But it was like young 20s, So they would have like articles on like pavement. And like how to unhook a bra with one hand? Yeah, probably. Yeah. What was the other? Is it like a precursor to Maxim or something? I think it was less trashy. It was actually Maxim was just kind of trash. It was pure trash. Yeah, I never read Maxim. But it was so trashy, like it was borderline like, why not just get a titty rag? Yeah, just go like Playboy. Yeah, it was like a Playboy for like college kids. Like at least Playboy had good like writers in it. Yeah. And it also had tits. So yeah, like, Maxim had neither. Like it hinted at stuff. It was like PG-13. Yeah. I hated the subculture around it too. It was just like, ugh. It was kind of like frat guy magazine. Yeah, exactly. Stuff. I think I have one Maxim magazine because it was the one they had a bunch of people from Buffy. Okay. So it was like actresses from Buffy like half naked. And I was like, well,
It was the kind of
I'll
magazine.
check my morals at the door for this one.
They would have cologne
yeah.
packets inside.
Details had that, but it smelled good. It wasn't like Axe, you know.
This was just like this was stuff like you'd open up and throw them at people to fight with and stuff.
I think I may have accidentally started buying Details because Cindy Crawford was on the cover, and I may or may not have had an unhealthy obsession with Cindy Crawford in middle school.
I think a lot of people did.
To the point where I had her calendar, and I like cut out her calendar and had all of 12 of the pictures in my room. I had like my mom was probably like, well, at least he's not gay, but this is pretty fucked up, you know. I'm sure
I never
something.
had I think I was too self-conscious to have like girly posters on the wall.
I mean, it was mixed. I mean, it was like next to Anathema and shit. So like,
Okay.
I kind of.
Well, at a certain point, I had my mom was so pissed, but I had my entire bedroom was covered with like Metal Maniacs things. Instead
mine
of
was
taping them on the
collaged.
wall, I stapled them to the wall.
Oh, see, I pinned them, so I left holes.
I did
like
too,
that.
but it was harder to pull out. And then after a while, I started painting murals on my wall.
I went full ceiling too. So like,
I started and then I got bitched out, and that's when I put a lock on my door.
okay, yeah.
But my closet was, I took all my, what are the fucking CD cases called?
Gems.
No,
CD
the big cardboard things.
Oh shit! Long boxes.
Long boxes. I would
Yeah.
take the long boxes and I'd slit them down the side and like butterfly them open and glue them on the inside of my closet.
I missed the long box era because I didn't get a CD player till like '95. They were
Okay.
pretty much phased out by
It was
then.
kind of a cool era.
Yeah.
Like you get all that extra art and
Yeah.
whatever, but
No, I think about like, I mean, you know, I look at like the shit where we're at in the basement, and it's pretty, you know, it's action packed with there's a lot happening, and people have ever seen my classroom. My classroom is just fucking like collaged. You know, I've covered like as much wall space as possible, but I just think about like it was metal. It was Cindy Crawford. It was a little comic stuff here, but I was kind of phasing out of that because I wanted to like start bringing girls back, you know, home and stuff. And I just think about like if I was a girl and I was hanging out in my room in high school, you know, and like trying to make out in the bed, and I'm looking up and all I see is just like there's not a space. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like I wasn't thinking about that stuff at that point. I didn't
think,
like clean my room up for girls or anything.
I think a lot of girls did. I mean, girls
They
I
just
dated
probably
in high
dealt
school
with
did
it.
the same stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
You
I
know?
remember like thinking like girls' rooms would be neat, and then like going to girls' house, I was like, holy shit, there's like piles of clothes on the ground and stuff. You know?
The most like filthy, slobby people I've ever met have been girls.
Really?
Yeah.
That's fine.
As far as like just piles of fucking clothes everywhere, and
that's
like
true.
you know,
Sometimes the bathroom situation, like the sink, will be like a disaster area. With,
and there's just like
hairspray,
makeup and crap all over the place. And
I don't want to cast aspersion, but you know,
no, but it's I've definitely had, you know, shitty male roommates, but like there's some girls I dated, I was just like, wow.
And I think, you know, what was weird is that my mom is like not that. My mom's like,
She's on top of it.
she's on fucking Greek cleaning machine, you
Yeah.
know? And so like, I just made the assumption that all girls are probably like that. And I think some of the girls I dated in high school were fairly clean, but then I started dating a few that were like, yeah, I'll just throw this here. I was like, okay. It was kind of liberating. I was like,
I mean,
oh, cool.
I think it
they're
depends
as
on-
lazy as I am
on
sometimes.
how they're raised. Like my
100%.
parents are very fastidious about everything.
Yeah.
Like before every Christmas, we would have to get rid of a box of stuff before we got new stuff in.
Oh,
And man, that was tough I would hide like, I could keep all my action figures I want hidden underneath this thing and put like just junk and like socks. And like, you can't take socks. You got to put
you
in
need
stuff.
those. You need
It's
those.
like, oh, fuck.
I remember my mom got rid of all my He-Man shit without telling me. It was just like a moment, and it was a struggle. She was like, "Well, you don't play with those anymore. You've been playing with GI Joes now." So like I was like I didn't know how, like I didn't cry or anything, but I just think I was like petrified. I was like, "What does this mean?" It was like
It's
such
your
a
first
pivotal
feeling of
moment.
loss.
Yeah, it was like a pivotal fucking moment.
I think most of my stuff, I usually destroyed it before. Like I got a BB gun when I was probably like 9 or something, and would take, you know, He-Man and GI Joe, and I've got like a magnifying glass, figure out how to melt them.
God, we used
And
to
then-
fucking use gasoline on Battle Beasts, and I don't know why. I fucking love Battle Beasts.
We
What
would-
was I doing to them? Why?
Those are expensive as shit right now.
I
too.
know.
but you were using them. You're having fun as a kid.
I was
which is,
doing some experimental shit.
we
you know?
the neighbors had. I lived fairly out in the country, so we had like farms and stuff around.
Yeah.
And we would get like shotgun shells and empty out the shot from the the gunpowder and blow stuff up, and like you get like we found like Zippo fluid for the first time, and you could like draw with it and then light on fire and it would just burn that stuff.
Yeah.
You could put it in your hand and it wouldn't burn your hand.
Oh yeah.
So we just
push the
destroyed
limits.
fucking everything.
Yeah, push the limits. And we've talked about that before, like the silo
I killed a
fires and
live
stuff.
frog and I wasn't happy about it, but I needed to do it just to figure out I should never do that again.
I killed a fish once. Like
The frog I caught on a fishing pole, and I was too scared to pull it off the hook, and I just flung it around until it flew off on a rock.
Oh shit.
But I still remember it, so it's like...
That was the last...
I'm
like,
burned with those
that
memories.
was like one of the last animals I think I ever killed. I never hunted. I don't really fish anymore. So yeah, I kind of... Yeah, other than eating
I tried
meat.
fishing a couple years ago.
Yeah.
I suck. It's real bad.
I don't mind it. My stepdad loves fishing. I just... Taking him off the hook is like a real issue for me.
I just want a glove, just so I can hold it. It doesn't like
Just,
fire out.
Yeah, the struggle.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess I'm just thinking about like my my version of like the boogie van culture was like my room, and I don't know how cool you were, but and we would like hang out and like listen to shit like Fu Manchu, and like inevitably like it'd be my buddy Tweed who Mark used to know, and some other people, and Grindcore Coon, and be like, hey man, let's listen to some Pink Floyd, let's put the black light bulb in. And so I had this fucking giant fat black light bulb that I would unscrew my normal bulb and I'd put the black light bulb in. I remember putting that thing in a few times, hanging out with girls in my room and thinking it would be like
Did you ever have
romantic.
Weird.
I had some like makeout sessions with that thing on.
Did you see any jizz on your comforter or anything? From black light?
That's I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think I knew about that.
Or your
'cause
pants are just like, oh,
that
God.
was like pre-CSI. I don't know what the first was. It like was Basic Instinct like the first movie that sort of like alluded to like black light like on sheets.
We knew about it before.
I didn't know
from going to
about it.
raves and shit.
Oh well, yeah, I never went to raves. So wait,
yeah,
you
like
saw jizz at raves?
Well, you'd see
Or just-
spots on people's pants,
Oh.
and you didn't. It was
It was like
something,
piss or
some organic
something,
matter.
yeah.
It could be soap. It could be anything. But we just
Yeah, I
laughed
guess
and thought it was jizz
no
on
one,
everybody's
no
pants.
one I was hanging out with was ever looking for that or noticed it to the point where like who knows? You know, I think I was a fairly clean person in that regard, but I don't know.
But
was
yeah,
a
I
high
don't know.
school
I don't know
boy.
what comes up on black
Like,
light outside
yeah.
of.
It was just supposed to be cool.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
cool atmosphere.
Did you have posters?
I didn't.
It's
but
weird
we
that
just
you'd have the bulb and not
I
the
know.
posters.
We just thought I think we bought it like fucking probably New Moon or something like that. We just bought it like, oh, this would be cool to own. I was the guy that had the black light bulb, and we just fucking put it in.
I hate
We
that
didn't do
vibe now.
drugs. We
Yeah.
didn't do like it was like we didn't take advantage of anything that black light bulbs were supposed to be, other than it was like a dimmer. It just kind of dimmed the room and gave it like a weird.
It made everybody's
atmosphere.
teeth look weird.
I guess, yeah. But man, so that's my Fu Manchu like pop, you know, like the aesthetic kind of story there. But basically, where I discovered them was Rolling Stone magazine. Oh, that's how we got on this. Details magazine. Cindy Crawford.
Yeah. Cindy's still a good-looking lady
She does all right. I mean,
for
dude,
50-something.
I watched her fucking House of Style show every week, and it was terrible.
What was that?
It was on MTV. It was her like fashion show. It was on like at the same time that like Real World premiered, but I would watch it
I didn't even know that existed.
just for her, and I would sit through all the segments in middle school, just kind of like lying to myself, saying that I gave a shit about like, oh, they're doing a feature on Todd Oldham's like fucking couch designs.
Cool.
Like I thought, oh, this is so chic, so fucking. But I was like, 14. I didn't know what the fuck I was doing.
I knew her more,
Yeah.
I think, from her risque bikini things and stuff.
Yeah. But that's what got her. That was like she started making a lot of MTV appearances. Then they gave her own fucking show.
Yeah.
Then I remember reading about that she was a biochemistry major at Northwestern, and I was like,
She's no slouch.
She's fucking smart. I was like, oh, all right, I'm yeah. So I like me some smart.
Not just
girls.
a good-looking lady with a beauty mark.
Exactly. Rolling Stone magazine had a review of In Search of, and I never heard of Fu Manchu at this point, I'm pretty sure. And I knew Monster Magnet, Clutch. I was into all that kind of stuff. Caius. And they basically said this is one of the heaviest like albums you'll ever hear. And they meant...
Which is exactly what you want to hear as a teenager.
Yeah, but it was like heavy in like the Black Sabbath sense. And they said like the Falcon Has Landed is so fucking heavy. It's like Into the Void from Black Sabbath. Like, taken to the next level. And I like kind of understood that. I was like, oh, okay. All right. Like, So I went to Warehouse Records, which was the rival of the record store Mark and I worked at, and sure enough, found it and was like, I'll just buy it on a whim, and took it home and fucking loved it. Regal Begal was the first thing I heard, because that's the song that sort of kicks everything off. But, so Regal Begal. Hang on, I got my notes here. What's the reference you think of? Because I know what my reference point is.
For the title?
Yeah.
Isn't it something to do with Happy Days?
I think isn't it the Regal Beagle's the bar from Three's Company?
Oh, is that what it is?
Pretty
I knew it was
sure.
something from a sitcom, but yeah.
And we used to watch those at Grand Cocoon's house because he didn't have cable. So there would be reruns of Three's Company on at like 3 a.m. when we'd like stay up all night at his house, in between Tecmo Bowl.
I mean, I used to watch all that stuff.
Yeah. But
8 is enough.
But the guy that became the model for the Family Guy character, who's like really gross, who was like Jack's buddy who like hung out the Regal Beagle, Larry. Remember the character Larry with dark hair? He was
the scumbag.
Scumbag, yeah. Who's like the Quagmire, basically, is based off of him from Family Guy, basically. Okay. So that's why I think of Regal Beagle and Larry.
I just drew Larry for what the fuck was that? Some commission I had.
No shit.
And they said we want a creepy weird dude. And I just thought of Larry from Three's Company.
Larry. Exactly. He's a total fucking pedophile.
I don't remember what the fuck. I'll have to look at my computer when I get home.
But I mean, that iconic opening with that stuttering kind of riff fill before it kind of locks in. It's just this iconic sort of stoner rock boogie, I said Eddie almost does like Gaz kind of improv type stuff with some of the call and response kind of bluesy thing that he sort of does with the flair that he adds at the end of some of the riffs and stuff. I think Eddie and Gaz, like Circa, like Cosmic Requiem, like they're kind of locked into that sort of style, a little bit from Cathedral there. And there's just this, like that midsection where you get that sort of ZZ Top kind of bass,
the bass drop.
Yep. Yeah. Very cool. Then the tempo increases, as more layers of guitar kind of build before you get this kind of Sweet Leaf kind of roar again at like kind of the 2-minute mark. It's about driving. That's what the song's about. Hell on wheels since the start of time. That's one of the great sort of lyrics there. And then Redline is kind of the shortest tune on the whole record, I think. Just a lot of flange.
That's what you added that one.
Yeah, that's the one I added. Like, some cool like pedal effects. I basically said the whole thing sounds like a Hawkwind number mixed with Trace Hombre's ZZ Top. So.
I guess if anything, they probably owe a lot to ZZ Top.
Yeah. There's a lot of
it's
that.
Got a lot of
Beer
boogie,
Drinkers, Hellraisers, kind of kind of riffs and things. Lagrange, all
and just like subject matter.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like more lifestyle subject matter than
it's just hanging out,
personal,
getting drunk, and doing kind of stuff. Yeah. But yeah, so In Search of is just it's a fun record, and so I'm happy to kind of get into it here. Looking to see if there are any more quotes about it before I move on. Nope. So let's get into it. Let's keep this van rocking.
Keeping on, man.
Yeah, let's keep this van a rocking. Don't come knocking, guys.
Well, you guys can come knocking because you're Patreon.
That's true. Yeah, you can. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. I'm having fun. We're doing a Fu Manchu show, man. What can you do? Sorry, I'm getting my notes. I feel like I'm missing a page from my notes. What did I do here? Oh, that's because it's flipped over. All right. Good thing there's a Patreon show and you guys don't care about mistakes.
I always go, I use my old papers that I print out.
Okay. Well, usually I have like a 3 and a 4, but I had it reversed for some reason on my clipboard. This next set, this is the set for me. I would say this is kind of the money set in a lot of ways. Here you kind of get songs like Neptune's Convoy and Cyclone Launch and Strato-Streak that they really raise the ante in terms of heaviness. I mean, Falcon has landed as its own sort of heaviness, but this is like where Eddie kind of comes unglued with a lot of his leads, and they really play with a lot of cool dynamics, some of the quiet, loud sort of stuff that we're going to kind of get into.
Get some cowbell, too.
Yes, lots of fucking cowbell. We're going to kick off, though, with Asphalt Risin, which was the single. This was the MTV video.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it was pretty cool. Like, actually, it wasn't played a lot, but it was like...
Was it Headbangers Ball, or was it just on normal rotation?
Headbangers Ball was canceled by 95 was the last year of Headbangers, and this is 96. So
that's shit.
They might have had... There was a show for a while called Super Rock for people.
Yeah, it wasn't that great.
No, I have some Super Rock episodes recorded, though, on VHS if we ever want.
Was it just like grunge stuff? And
they had an episode where Slayer was on. I remember they
Okay.
were like the co-hosts and stuff. So like it was like a half-ass like Headbangers, but like kind of 120 minutes Headbangers. It was kind of weird.
Heavy metal's never been a great thing for advertising revenue,
Absolutely, yeah.
especially for television.
But you get that iconic opening riff from Asphalt Rising, and he says, I got a full board on a frame in the yard, which means he's building a hot rod from scratch, with a Hurst shift getting me into 4. And a Hurst shift, Mark, is an aftermarket shifter that was used by drag racers and got you to 4th gear.
Nice.
And the chorus says, a Super C is what I need, and a Super C stands for a supercharger, which was a power adder used in drag racing. And so it's got a little bit of like
Some nomenclature
Mad
in there?
Max Fury Road kind of activity kind of going on here.
Spraying some spray paint in their teeth.
Exactly. Yeah. But there's something else in the second verse that I want to share with you a little bit here. Let me get to it here. So there's that Hurst shift. Yes. This is the second verse. Okay, this is from that article, Asphalt Rising, which is named after the song. Straight off the line, I'm better every time, which means launching during a drag race. He has a quicker reaction time after each launch. Pull the left lane, supercharged it fine. Hooks are getting better traction on the left lane, so he has a supercharger, further proving the Super C theory. Took a 4th try to a star at the right. The 4th pass of the day, he got faster and won. Pushed a button for a ride into the sky. The button is likely either a nitrous or simply starting his drag car. So the song basically describes the joys of building a drag car and the dreams of racing it.
So he probably does this stuff
Yeah, probably.
to be able, because who else would?
Yeah.
Unless he's just a.
Unless
You know,
he's
his
just an
dad's really into it or
aficionado.
something.
Yeah, maybe his dad
Who
was kind of
knows?
into it and shit like that. But I love the sort of glorious, kind of simple, Rubin kind of drum fill after the chorus that gets us back into the next kind of verse and riff.
This is distinctly Americana,
For sure. Yes.
which we don't really. There's not a whole lot of. I can't think of a whole lot of other bands or much of anything that really embraces the real like Americana of old. That
Yeah, and I think it's why
like globalization's kind of like squash some of that stuff to some degree.
I think it's partially why maybe lately I have really gotten into going back and watching, a lot of the teen comedies and some of the kind of classic sort of stuff, because I think it does capture a bygone sort of era. And it's not me just sort of being like, I realize that the narrative of most of those movies is like middle-class suburban white people. And so it's like not even like my own experience necessarily, but it's just a fascinating like cultural lens into like what the values of that time sort of were. That
Don't
like,
be a virgin.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, fuck you. Yeah, get laid.
That's usually what I got out of all those movies.
Exactly.
Like, man, why are none of my friends ever talking about this stuff?
Exactly.
Because of AIDS.
So here's the thing. All right, this is kind of cool, and you'll have to go back and kind of think about this because I'm about to give you a little weird take. Eddie's got a nice solo that accompanies the meaty thickness of Scott's main riff. Okay, you like that meaty thickness? All right, and yeah,
Maybe think of something else.
I
but yeah.
said it's like the stoner rock version of Carcass Buried Dreams. Because Amat's doing all the clean stuff,
Okay.
and Steer's doing that, almost like No
The
Love
rhythmic
Lost,
thing,
like
yeah.
kind of thing. So, and Ruben even has some of that innate Ken Owens kind of catchiness to some of the things he's doing too, which I think is kind of cool.
Interesting.
So
So
that's my
interesting
weird
hot take.
illusion that Asphalt Rising is the Buried Dreams of the stoner rock kind of genre. So for whatever that's worth.
I have drum break, cathedral.
Oh.
How to
So there was a British thing there, if you're hearing Cathedral.
how to bang at end. I don't know what that means.
I don't know, but I like it. How to bang at the end. Well, if you win the drag race, maybe you'll get
You get that hot chick
banging.
that's flipping the flag, then you
Exactly.
get to take her top off.
Yep. Sorry for. Wait,
Pardon me.
Yeah, we're right in like the theme of this. There's probably some innate
getting carried
weird
away.
misogyny that's just part of that culture.
Sure. Well, it used to be in the 50s they take off their handkerchief on their head to at least in American Graffiti and Happy Days. My
Well,
understanding
Footloose when they have a little
50s.
chicken race. I can't
True.
remember what they used for the chicken kind of deal there. Then we get to Neptune's Convoy, and I just said, how fucking heavy is Scott's riff at the 50-second mark when he goes, I feel nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just boom.
Where the space stuff kicks in.
Fuck, man. I said it's like cosmic planetary heaviness to fit the title.
It really reminds me of Monster Magnet, like hugely.
It's Monster Magnet, and it's especially Clutch Space Grass.
I'm not familiar enough with Clutch.
That's
to
like
know.
that's kind of their masterpiece from their self-titled, but like that just has like this. You've heard it before. It's like
Is that the
it
one
starts
with
with like Atmosphere, and then he's like Dodge Swing 1973.
What was their
chassis.
first big hit? Their video.
Boom, boom. Space Grass was pretty big. Escape from the Prison Planet.
No.
I mean, are you talking the album before, like Shogun named Marcus?
Shogun, yeah.
That was the previous album. Yeah, the next album is
I didn't pay attention
Clutch.
to them after that album.
that's monstrous. That's good.
I just don't. I don't know. There's something about them that turns me off.
I'd like to challenge you to a Clutch show sometime, like Solitude Eternus, where like you have to revisit that. Yeah,
Let's leave it to a
I
couple
wish
albums.
I wish I could snapshot Mark's face there. He was not excited about that, but
I saw them. They played with Mastodon a couple years ago.
yeah.
They just bored the tits off me.
Yeah, I can't.
I don't know what
I don't
they
listen to
played,
full
but-
Clutch records anymore, but I think you could throw together like a good 12 song that's like mixed.
I'm sure.
That's pretty fucking good.
Yeah,
You know,
I
like
guarantee I
highlights.
won't buy any though.
Yeah, well, you probably won't. Yeah, that self-titled's pretty fantastic. I think you would dig it. So.
I won't buy it though.
Okay, don't buy it. All
Okay.
right. Now I'm using reverse psychology.
I don't
Whatever
like-
you do, don't ever buy it.
I don't like the. Hey, I bought a Crimson Glory record though.
Yeah, hey, I told you.
I'm still waiting on it.
Did
but-
you get that Awaken the Guardian yet?
No, that's the one I'm waiting on.
Okay,
I heard
I'm
it from
kinda curious
Germany.
what your thoughts are on that.
Well,
That
somebody
came up
else was
again.
just,
Fenrez was talking about that. It's like one of his
And
favorite.
John
records,
Perez was
too.
talking about it a lot, too, so.
Yeah, it keeps coming up.
I was like, I'll give that a
It's in
whirl.
the zeitgeist, you know,
Yeah.
like Metal Church kind of. You know.
But nobody's talking about Clutch.
Well,
I
some
respect
people.
your opinion, but
Yeah.
there's some things I put my foot down on.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah, but it reminds me of Space
Episode
Grass.
400, we can do
Yeah,
a
there
Clutch
you go.
show.
Well, there we go. We guarantee in episode 400 we'll do a Clutch show.
I'll be 55 years old, and
Yeah, and I just said the Monster Magnet-esque guitar effects during the cosmic quiet.
I love
parts
all that shit.
Is really great. It's very like Volume 4, like Masters of Reality, that kind of stuff.
I don't know really anybody outside of Sabbath and then Monster Magnet that really did that. That like real, like blatantly, kind of like spacey,
I'm trying to think of anything
Hawkwindy
out
thing.
of the proto metal. Yeah, there's
Especially
probably
that,
somebody
like, into the 90s. I don't know of anybody.
Yeah, nobody in the 80s was really doing that too much. Maybe that Masters of Reality band did it a little bit, but they were never as heavy.
I don't really know much about. I've never heard them. I don't
Yeah,
think.
I recently picked one of those up.
Okay.
That's one of the ones that was in the glass case. That when I got that new album. thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was the
Okay.
white cover.
Yeah.
So that might have been the one. I think I got the one that has Ginger on it, Baker on drums.
Okay.
But yeah, there's a moment around the 3:15 mark where they do like they go from like the sludgy part to like, and in my brain as they do it,
3:15, the
3:15,
swing, the Sabbath swing.
I just said, "Could this be the end, my friend?" That's what I wrote. Like it's just totally in that moment. You
Yeah.
know?
I'd kind of like to hear a whole record like that.
Yeah.
Of that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Basically, the song Neptune's Convoy is about a car that's been ridden slow and low, and he's depressed. It's time to soup it up.
Is this from the point of view of the car?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
There we go. Because there's only so much you can write about cars from the outside perspective to get inside the internal mind of the car.
Yeah. It's like Christine, but like a more depressed,
A less
like,
vengeful.
Yeah, like a sad Christine. you
Yeah,
know?
it's like, oh, this car is-
I really wish like Scott would suit me up. You know, so
My parents fell in love with this car, and then I got it for my car, and it's just
nobody's
sad
fucked
now.
in the back seat lately, and I'm pretty sad right now.
Maybe
so.
you could suit me up, Scott. What do you think, buddy?
Oh shit! Now I'm thinking of a weird subplot in the the Pixar Cars movie. Where it's this fucking sad.
I've still
hot
never
rod.
seen Cars.
I've seen like the first one. It's one of my least favorite Pixar's.
I didn't see it because Larry the Cable Guy was in it.
Yeah, it's a good reason not to see.
And then he started doing like those antacid commercials, and I was like, all right, that
I mean,
that cemented
it's,
it.
It's low level. It's not like horrible. It's not like the worst Disney movie. It's better than most like kind of subpar Disney movies. But it's for Pixar. It's
I feel they're
real low.
They're kind of sketchy as of
And the fact
last
that
10
one
years.
got a like sequel so early, I was like, I think
It
little
was
kids
hugely popular.
I think little kids really like it. So I'm more into the adult Pixar that like are made.
Even the
for-
kidsy stuff, like early on, kids could dig it, but
Yeah.
but it was written smart enough for adults to get the subtext.
Yeah, exactly. Then we get Cyclone Launch. Very mid-90s Cathedral, I said, but with more cowbell.
Yep.
Ruben's drum introduction before that monolithic riff is just reductive genius. Just like that so fucking good.
That put us kind of in the Wizard mold.
Yeah,
to some degree.
it's definitely got some of that. Yep, 90s. Well, in early Wizard had a lot of cathedralisms too.
Especially that first record.
I said the song's about the art of supercharging a car. You got lyrics: wire fry a belt blown drive as superchargers are driving by a belt on the car's engine. So that's kind of what's going on there. But yes, I love the way that Scott and Eddie interplay with the guitars and how they do that repetitive pattern of a riff, but then add an engine rev each time. So like it's the literal, like if the last song Neptune's Convoy is from like the perspective of a sad car, they're literally creating the sounds of like cars racing with their fucking instruments here.
Like kids.
Yeah, they just do that like that really fucking cool thing. And Glass is just getting wilder and wilder with his sort of call and response mini solos by this point, you know. Before he busts out what I said is the second best solo of the whole record. Ruben fills, they're like classic purple Sab fills. They kind of remind me of some of the Deep Purple sort of stuff as well. But yeah, Cyclone Launch is good shit. And so then we get to Strato-Streak, Mark. My favorite Fu Manchu song. Hands down. For me. Scott's vocals are so chill here, even during the chorus. And this is really Eddie's show on this song, Strato-Streak. Scott's main riff is one big revving engine. You can feel the heat and exhaust coming off this, especially at the moment between like 42 and 58 seconds, that whole thing. I just said is genre perfection. It's the coalescence of all the magic before that fucking killer guitar solo. I said Nebula is born in this flange, psych, Hawkwind glory, but fuck me when Brad's bass takes the song over at 310 and the guitars roar back with Ruben's tempo build. When Scott hits the I said it all and he comes back in that pocket singing for like about 10 seconds later, I said it's brief, but for me it's the highlight of the whole fucking album. And the song's about cruising the back roads in a muscle car. So
I've cruised back roads, but never in a muscle car before.
yeah. So what'd you say about the Strata? I don't know.
Put more Sabbath riff. Cathedral was smoking the same stuff.
Yes.
Nice dueling solo bits. Nice chug toward the end. Last album with Eddie Glass.
Yep.
And then the end with a good hook.
Yes. That's probably that part I talked about, the 310 part. That's just fucking great. That's when he says, I said it all. Da, da, da. Or I sold it all.
Yeah.
I forgot to mention, I'm a real asshole, but luckily our patron fans know that. That I think it's after Daredevil. I think I forgot to mention. I have it in my notes. Brad Davis comes in as the new bass player. And
what's he come from?
Mark Abshire left. And Brad Davis came in and he replaced Abshire right before Daredevil. So yeah, so it was after No One Rides for Free. Brad Davis came in, and he was the guy that still skateboards. So
okay,
I don't know where he came from actually. He was probably in some kind of localized band or whatever. But yeah, so Brad Davis is now the bass player, but Mark Abshire will reappear because he's going to hook up with Ruben and Eddie to form Nebula as a trio. So he's still sort of in the family somewhere, but. Fuck it, man. Let's get into it.
Let's go bowling, dude.
Yeah, fuck it, man. Let's go bowling.
In the
Sold it all, Mark. Strato-Streak, Cyclone launch, Neptune's Convoy, and Asphalt Risin. As we kind of wrap up in search of here and kind of talk about, well, kind of wrap up in search of, we'll kind of go out with a bang at the very end. Yeah, but just kind of finish up the sort of narrative of this era of Fu Manchu. Our patrons always like to know, kind of, because it's been a while since we've hung out, just other happenings that have been kind of going on. You know, movies. You know, we did take a little trip. Some of our patrons who follow us on Facebook know we were up north, Traverse City, the Sleep Bear Sand Dunes with Chris. They're having some kind of Requiem adventures and things like that. On
a holiday weekend, no less.
Yeah, Cherry Festival.
I've never done...
That was pretty close to one of the more potential touristy things I've done. Like, really were.
It wasn't necessarily what we did was touristy, but when we did it.
Yeah, it was bad timing. Yeah.
Yeah, but luckily it wasn't as packed as we thought it was going to be. Like, we didn't wait for anything.
Did you hear? I didn't know this, but the guy I coach with that used to live up in Traverse City said that, like, one of the carny rides, like, almost fucking, like, fell apart and, like, threw people. Like, they were, like, literally holding it down. It was one of, like, the spinny salt and pepper shaker ones.
That's why I don't go on that shit.
Fuck that.
There was one...
it's a bunch of, like, toothless carnies.
Yeah, locally down in... somewhere in Detroit, there was some, like, you know, fucking harebrained fucking little community carnival thing.
Yeah.
And there was, like, a 40-foot tall climbing wall that some kid just fucking fell from.
They weren't belaying him, right?
No,
Jesus
they
Christ.
Just hit the ground.
Was he dead or okay?
I don't know. They showed it was like a picture of the kid falling. It was just all blurred out as he...
Oh, fuck.
As he fell.
That's horrifying.
But apparently the regulatory agencies that deal with that kind of stuff don't... I don't know. That's all basically what it was talking about. I wasn't talking about the kid as much as like
talking about how.
Well, the cops can't do anything because they're not the regulatory agency. It's some state thing. It's like, Jesus Christ. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, so if the carnies got the license, that's kind of just the cops just take it as face value that they, but they're insured and everything. They could pay the people out, but
sure.
But those things, you don't do it.
Not good. Not good.
No. Fuck it.
Yeah, no. So that was good times. It's kind of fun to hang out and not do podcast things. You know, it's always kind of fun. And, and things to do that sometimes. But yeah,
especially in hotel rooms.
Yeah, Yeah.
with not less than perfect mic situations.
Sure. Yeah. We've been down that
It's
road.
nice just
our German metal series was
it's
done in a
the
hotel
only
room.
time that we've ever gone anywhere together where we didn't go to a record store.
It's true.
Or like a movie store or
Yeah.
comic shop or something.
It was good. We
weird.
did go to Cherry Republic though. So, but we were all fucking overfed at that point. I couldn't really enjoy
Did
Cherry
you try
Republic.
any of that habanero summer sausage? Did you get any of
Yes, I did.
Wow, that hurts the next day.
Did it? Yeah, it didn't bother me.
I think
But
you might have
my body's used
tempered
to,
yourself a little bit.
I've trained my body, but no, we were eating that when we were watching fireworks on the beach. I think.
No, that was just cheap beef jerky.
Oh,
I got like a whole roll at Cherry Republic.
oh, maybe I didn't have any of that.
Okay.
Yeah, I've had it before.
It was
Larry
it was
makes
good, but
his
I
own
ate too much
venison
of it.
jerky, and he puts my stepdad and he puts jalapenos in it.
I love venison jerky.
Pretty solid.
It's one of my
try and bring you
favorites.
some
yeah,
next time.
that'd be awesome.
We'll munch on it when we record a podcast. So
Yeah, we did that. What the fuck? I can't think of much of what I've been doing.
I've just been watching movies, things like that, just kind of typical shit.
I've been going to weird comic stores.
Yeah, you've been
looking
kind of
for
hunting
crap.
down some stuff. I've been selling Mark some of my Star Wars things.
Yeah, I got a good Star Wars haul from Jason from a old what was it, a student's parents or something.
Yeah, fucking gave me just
That's been sitting up in your attic for how long? A couple years,
probably 3-4 years.
3-4 years.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that kickstarted my vintage Star Wars collection again. I've never collected as an adult, so
You know what I watched because of our episodes, and I'm about to fucking blow your mind with some things.
Okay.
So be prepared for your
I'm sitting down.
because this kind of got me. Okay, so I went and watched The Crow. I saw The Crow kind of in high school at Craig Johnson, one
I
of
saw
your
it in
neighbors'
theater.
house.
Yeah.
But we were kind of half paying attention, and so I kind of wanted to see it again, just to, now that I knew the soundtrack inside and out, just see where the music cues were. Kind of like when I watched
And
Last
it's
Action
Detroit,
Hero. Based in Detroit a little bit, yeah.
Well, the story, the jail bar is from Detroit, but
Did you know James O'Barr was not just from Detroit?
not just from. Was he from Armada?
So Ernie Hudson's character, the cop, okay, he's the
I haven't
cop.
seen this since
he's
it
the
came out.
cop that helps out the Crow. Ernie Hudson from Ghostbusters.
yeah.
All right, black guy. All right,
I
Albrecht.
met him at a convention.
Albrecht, you got it exactly.
Held the door for him.
So Ernie Hudson's character, this isn't the most mind-blowing part, but this is building towards some weird shit, okay? Ernie Hudson's character, Officer Albrecht, is named after Joy Division member Bernard Sumner. All right. While writing the comic on which the movie is based, James O'Barr drew inspiration from the band's music as well as that of The Cure and Iggy Pop. Blah, blah, blah. In the early days of Joy Division, Sumner had taken the surname of Albrecht for no apparent reason. Okay. So in the movie, do you remember there's kind of, it can't rain all the time? That was like the catchphrase. It can't rain all the time.
I literally remember nothing.
Yeah. So the phrase "it can't rain all the time" is inspired by an encounter that the writer James O'Barr had as a teen.
With a Mr. James Osterberg.
While living in Shepherd, Michigan,
Whoa.
prior to enlisting in the Marines, the down-on-his-luck O'Barr found himself unable to pay for groceries. Frustrated, he decided to buy just rice, to which the man in line behind him stated, and by the way, I'm reading this from IMDb.
Okay.
You can't eat rice all the time while paying for O'Barr's groceries. The man turned out to be Lee Coughlin, the mayor of Shepherd himself.
Bullshit.
And is also the basis for the character of Albrecht, played by Ernie Hudson.
No way.
It fucking says that.
Did you send that to Coughlin?
I haven't yet. I was going to like build this narrative and like put it
Wow.
together. So for those of you patrons who are like, what the fuck's we're talking about? Mark Coughlin, who owns Solar Ghost Records, is
He used to work at the record store with us.
worked at the record
Great
store,
guy.
grew up with us.
Yeah.
We hang out with him. Lived in Hamtramck. Like
He lived here once.
Lived here at one point. We both stood up in Mark's wedding together. Like he's written for Eclipse magazine. Like
Yeah.
we're gonna have him on some. We've talked about getting him on some shows. So like I'm reading this. I'm just kind of when you watch a movie, you're scrolling through IMDb a little bit, and I was like, what the fuck? Because I knew his dad had been the mayor of fucking Shepherd on and off for years.
Levon Coughlin.
But
yes.
apparently going back to... So
I mean, that sounds like something Mark's dad would
did
do.
Dave Levi ever mention that James O'Carr fucking like lived next door in Shepherd, Michigan, which is like 5 minutes from
Well,
Mount Pleasant?
when was this?
Well, it said before he joined the Marines.
So that was probably early 80s.
Yeah, but I mean, like when you were going in there buying independent. I mean, I never bought The Crow, but it just
I didn't
seems like
either.
it should have somebody should have told me.
I
that
always
one
no,
point.
I always knew him as a Detroit guy because it was him and they did some Caliber comics. Mm-hmm. I can't think what the guy's name is now, but they were more like Dearborn, Detroit area where everybody kind of ended up. But I wonder if he's from Shepherd because I've never seen that he's from Shepherd. It's always like Detroit. That's crazy.
Just
and why
fucking
it's too
crazy.
It's too specific to be a lie.
Exactly. Lee Coughlin.
Yeah.
We know he's the fucking mayor of Shepherd. So when I read that, I was like, what's happening? This is so strange.
And for context, the mayor of Shepherd is like it's like you have the same responsibilities as like being a softball coach.
Yeah.
Like you get like $1,500 a year and you've got the title and you go to a couple meetings, but it's more of like a ceremonial kind of thing. But he's a super fucking kind, nice man.
Yeah, really nice guy.
That's fantastic.
So it's pretty wild. Watched a couple of old 80s comedies, The Jerk, which I hadn't seen since I was like a kid. And
I kind of don't like that movie.
It's pretty funny now. I don't know the last time you saw it.
It was like 10 years ago.
Okay.
Maybe I just wasn't in the mood, but
it's dumb. But there's like some
It's
lines
so
in there
dumb.
that are like pretty fucking funny.
I know it's like a super quotable thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's not something I would watch that often, but I just,
I know. Yeah, by reputation.
I picked
for
it
sure,
up
but
like
it seemed like
recently.
it seemed like he was trying to do like Bill Murray badly. Is what
But
I
I think
got out
it
of it.
predates all that because 79. So it predates a lot of those. Like Bill Murray didn't really emerge till 80 with Caddyshack. Meatballs and Caddyshack were both 1980.
Well,
So,
he was in Saturday Night Live before that and had that persona.
one season, I think.
Yeah, he was the first season.
Second season, Bill Murray.
Second season?
Yeah,
Okay.
because
Chevy left after the first season. I think.
exactly. Johnny Dangerously. Did you ever see that movie?
With the dick.
Michael Keaton.
Yeah, there's the animated sequence with the dick walking around or something. The cock and balls.
I don't know if I remember that part.
There's like
Maybe I
a
was-
hallucination scene.
Oh, yes.
We kept we were like, what the fuck?
Yeah, movie's pretty
It was
bonkers.
like a bouncing around cock and balls.
It's got about 50% too much Joe Piscopo. Speaking of Saturday
I think any movie with him has too much Joe Piscopo.
he had like a moment, right, for like a year.
He did. One movie I want to see with him is it's him and Treat Williams where they play cops.
Uh-huh.
It was actually on that show, the that Shudder thing that you turned me on to.
Oh no shit.
The 4.5 hour
horror documentary.
Yeah, but they're like cops fighting the undead. It's like a horror comedy, and I forget what the hell it's called, but it looks fantastic.
Huh. No shit. Joe
But that's got Piscopo in it. That's
Mm.
like after he like bulked up and started bodybuilding and shit.
Sure. Yeah, it was like him and Howie Mandel. Like I used to get confused for a while in the 80s. I don't know why.
Until that's probably why Joe Piscopo tried to bulk
until
up a little
Howie
bit.
Mandel shaved his fucking head and then hosted game shows and kind of became part of the zeitgeist again.
Yeah, what a guy.
What was that? What the fuck was that show where you open briefcases? That was like the show. I think
That's
he hosted.
from like the 2000s.
Yeah, that was like Howie had a moment. It was like Regis with Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
Is that the same thing that like Howard Stern was a guy or a judge on or
No,
something?
that's like a talent show, America's Got Talent or some bullshit. This is like you eliminated a certain, like you had 30 briefcases and like you.
Oh, like models opening them.
Yeah,
Or,
exactly.
I remember seeing commercials, but
It was
I
like a
never,
big deal for a while.
never watched it. I don't know what the fuck I've been doing. What have I been watching?
I mean, I've been reading a lot of X-Men and New Mutants comics, but that's another thing.
I've been working a lot. Like,
Yeah.
I've gotten a lot of jobs where I've got to like finish them up real quick. So I've just been kind of like nose to the grindstone. Listening to Winter. Picked up that Pitch Shifter record, the first one, which I haven't listened to again yet, but I'm kind of stoked to do that.
Yeah, Chris got me my birthday stuff, and he got me the Slimline Carcass Heartwork EP and the Slimline Bolt Thrower.
Sense.
Yeah, and then you got me the Pyogenesis Slimline for
Twin Old
Twin Old Blood.
Yep.
Yeah, so I'm like, whoo. Now
Your Slimline, you gotta be careful of those Slimlines, man.
Shit, I don't need to get into that. Yeah, so if any of you have some cheap earache Slimline stuff you want to,
It's tough to find replacements for those for the cases if you break them too. It's a
make or break, baby. I'm
bit of
sure
a
there's
nightmare.
somewhere to get them, but it's probably some obscure eBay site or some sort. But
man, I can't think of any movies I talked about Lawrence of Arabia on some other show.
yeah, you did. See, if you put them in Letterbox, then I could.
I saw the
I
Bob
could tell you.
Odenkirk movie.
Oh yeah, I heard that's awesome.
It's great.
Yeah, I heard it's a lot of fun.
fantastic. It's like an hour and 28 minutes. I kind of wish it was longer, which is like not something I ever say about modern
Sure.
movies. But he was fantastic in it. I fucking loved it.
He's so much fun.
There's
man.
there's no like extraneous explaining anything, which is just great. It's just like character stuff and action and watching them do stuff. But yeah, I paid to rent that. That was quite good.
I watched a French musical twice in 2 days. That's my like favorite movie. The Umbrellas of Cherbourg, the Catherine Deneuve.
Oh, okay.
The one that La La Land's sort of based off of, but this is like, I think I'm actually going to swap out Singing in the Rain in my film class for this. Because I actually think it does a couple things. It can introduce European cinema. It does capture the musical. And the themes in this movie, like Singing in the Rain is just objectively good. This movie, like the colors all mean something for different characters. Different characters like wear different colors for different reasons and different seasons. Like I could really unpack it and like analyze it, and the kids could kind of like get into it.
But is it as easy to like get into? Is it easy to dispel the myths that all musicals are shit as Singing in the Rain does? Because that was like, okay, no problem. I'll give anything a chance now. I
might test the waters and see. But yeah, that's if you haven't seen Umbrellas of Cherbourg and you want to see like a movie that just brings you to like utter like depths of like gut wrench. It's the ending of it.
Isn't
I won't say anything.
Foreign movies.
But this is like and Catherine Deneuve is my platonic ideal. Like in that movie, I think it's the most beautiful. She's just, I can't even talk about it. It's so good. So yeah, if you haven't seen Umbrellas of Cherbourg, every time I say, speaking of Nick Green, every time I post something about him, he's like the first guy to comment. I think he and I are like really like diehard Cherbourg fans.
Oh, I saw the 3 Days of the Condor.
Oh,
which was great.
Great, dude.
The editing what the hell's the director's name?
It's Pakula, right?
No.
Oh, it's Sidney Lumet.
No.
Is it?
No.
Oh shit, Sidney Pollack.
Yeah.
Sidney Lumet did what's the bank robbery movie with Pacino?
Dog Day?
Yeah, Dog Days. He also did you ever see Failsafe? It's a Criterion. It was released the same year as Doctor Strangelove, and it's another nuclear war movie.
No, I'm aware of it, but I've never seen it.
It's really fucking cool. It's like, it's straight. You know,
Yeah.
it's Strangelove satire. This is a little more
But
straight.
the 7, because I just watched French Connection like a week or so ago for like, I haven't seen it in probably 10 years.
Yeah.
And just that like frenetic 70s editing. It's like, fuck, I was jonesing for it. So that 3 Days of the Condor does the same thing. It's got Max von Sydow is fucking great in it. Redford's fantastic. Faye Dunaway's great in it.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where it's a lot of watching other people do stuff. And I just fucking love that stuff.
I think you'll dig Parallax View when you watch it.
Yeah,
I just
fell
picked
asleep,
up on Criterion if you
nice.
want to borrow it.
Yeah.
So
I'd love to see any of the special
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
It's on Prime, but I'd rather watch the Blu-ray.
Watch it on Blu-ray.
Then I know exactly where I left off.
Sure. Yeah. So I've been just kind of dabbling in that. I'm trying to pick up some other. I'm trying to like. Sometime I'll take a picture and post for the Patreons this filmography bullshit poster, but I'm trying to really fill it in. I've got a pretty
You've done a damn good job
healthy
so far.
chunk. Yeah.
That's just this year, right?
No, I mean that's my whole life. So like movies I saw
Okay.
prior to
Okay.
I included.
But there's
those.
a lot of like.
It's
like
a lot I
classics
saw
and-
during
okay.
Quarantine Fest.
Well, you probably saw at least like 70, 80 movies.
Probably out of that, yeah.
on
Yeah.
this list?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And I own a lot that are on there, but I haven't gotten around to watching
Is this
them.
on with dry erase marker? Or
So, no, it's permanent, but
Okay, good.
but I'm not drawing on the poster.
yeah,
I'm just
It's
drawing
on
on the
the-
plastic.
yeah. I just didn't. If this was dry erase,
Yeah,
and
if
you had
people
an
can
asshole
wipe it
come
off.
over, it'd be
Yeah,
a
exactly. Yeah,
bummer.
at a party and stuff. So, but yeah, so I just figured, it's been a while since we've updated people. People like to know shit. We get a lot of feedback from our patrons on like, hey, dude, the James Bond fucking shit, dude. All the
Yeah.
weird side conversations we have.
Wasn't
so.
that coming out in the theater? The new Bond.
Soon? I hope. Yeah, I'm excited.
It's been done
I'm
for a couple years, right?
Yeah, I'm hopeful.
The last Craig.
Yeah, the last Craig.
I don't know. I've heard. I don't have a whole lot of faith in a lot of like big tentpole things anymore because there's too many like hands in the pie. Mm-hmm. Like just if you're gonna hire a director that you think has good work,
Yeah.
just let them do it and don't say, well, we need to do this, we need to do this. We're gonna have somebody come in and punch up the dialogue. Like, just let them do it.
I mean, it's kind of crazy to think like that they allowed them to like reboot with Casino Royale being so like raw and visceral That
Yeah.
was a pretty big chance to take.
I think so.
On a formula,
But it needed
that
it.
was tried and true. Oh yeah, yeah. It was
Because
great.
with the Brosnan stuff at that point, it was just kind
The
of
last
like,
couple Brosnans were pretty sad. They had its moments.
The
but
one with what was the one in the Arctic that looked like it was all
Die
shot on
Another
blue
Day.
screen?
Yeah.
It was terrible.
I mean, the only reason I like that movie is purely personal. It's because the premiere was happening while I lived in London. And so like
That's cool,
it was
yeah.
a big deal. And when you went to Harrods, the like famous store, they had like the whole first floor was Bond shit. And it was like a giant promotion for that.
Yeah.
And so like I took my students in my film class I was teaching over there. We did a field trip to see Die Another Day.
Yeah.
And I think like afterwards they're like, it was like I taught at all girls school. So it was like me and like fucking 10, 17-year-old girls in a movie theater watching James Bond movie. And like, I think we were trying to like, it was kind of like after Phantom Menace, the first time you're like searching for like niceties. Like, oh
Well,
yeah.
you're kind of dumbfounded to some
Yeah,
degree.
I was like, oh, that was kind of, yeah, I had this moment.
And you know, Brosnan, he's always fine as an actor, but like what they did with cartooning up James Bond with Roger Moore, I didn't mind.
Sure.
It was just
I like some of the Brosnans. Like the first two are great.
what are the first two?
Goldeneye and Tomorrow Never Dies are both fantastic.
Goldeneye is the one with the tank scene, right?
Yeah, and it's
Okay.
got the Famke Jensen. As
What's the set piece of the first one with him?
with Goldeneye?
Yeah, Is that-
Sean Bean's the like villain.
is that the big like radio telescope thing?
Yeah,
Okay.
in the jungle and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Yeah, that's good.
They're fine. Just when they stopped using as much like real stunts.
Yeah,
Because what was the one?
Tomorrow's good because Michelle Yeoh is so fucking badass in it. She's
Yeah.
she's like a force of nature in that. Terry Hatcher's,
But
pretty
like
decent, but-
fucking, I fell asleep during Thunderball or not Thunderball. Moonraker.
Oh, Moonraker.
But Moonraker has an incredible fucking opening scene too.
yeah, for sure.
And it's just like,
got-
holy shit! Like,
yeah, Moonraker has some highs
it's
and
like
some low lows.
It's a bunch of skydivers and
Yeah.
a dude dressed up like fucking Jaws.
Yeah,
And I was like, that shit's all real and it looks terrifying.
Yeah.
But when you see like, Black Widow jumping out of an airplane now, it's just like, whatever. The stakes are not there.
yeah, exactly.
Like,
It's-
I hope they get back to some of that. Because like what they could do, like some of the Tom Cruise movies where he does just insane, stupid shit. That is exciting.
Pretty cool. Yeah,
Yeah, like
I've
that
dug
building
those
in
newer
Dubai or
Mission
when he's
Impossibles.
like hanging on the side of the plane and you can see he's like,
Well, that helicopter scene with Henry Cavill, it was
Jesus
pretty
Christ.
awesome. Yeah, it was pretty wild.
like that's what I want to see in those movies. Even if the plots aren't great, at least you're like, wow, that was
Sure.
fucking
It's pretty
dangerous
fun.
and exciting. Yeah.
absolutely. But yeah, I don't know what we were talking about Bond. Yeah, anyways. So let's get back into it. We'll kind of just a little
Let's put it
side
back
note
in our
for our patrons.
boogie van and-
Yeah, man, let's boogie van it. So boogie van, I will mention, even though we're not playing it, I got to the point where I used to drive the school van to cross country meets, and every time we get in the school van, I put on boogie van to the point where like a whole generation of high school kids knew it and loved it. So like there you go, Fu Manchu fans, or Fu Manchu.
Hopefully they
people.
bought a couple records. Or
Yeah, hopefully,
something.
or at least they downloaded it on LimeWire or some bullshit back in the day. So, but yeah, so the last song we're gonna play for now from In Search Of before we kind of wrap up our final kind of thing that we'll do at the end is Seahag, and this is a song about driving 95 miles per hour through the mountains, racing a Barracuda.
Okay, I was hoping it was about Popeye.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Sorry. And he grinds the gears to win at the end. So he's the king of the road as he sings.
Like to slow down? Are you grinding gears?
So he's grinding the gears to like finally in his Barracuda, or the Barracuda's winning in the mountains, and things are real fucking dangerous.
Okay.
And whatever car he's driving, he finally like fucking up gears and wins at the very end.
Okay.
So he
was
claims
struggling
at
to
the
get it
end-
into-
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, he's really like grinding his gear.
Well, the Cuda was from Phantasm. It was the fourth character or whatever in Phantasm. The car in the first one.
Oh yeah, that's right.
the Cuda,
That's right.
the black Cuda.
Yep. Great Ruben fills at 2:15, and Eddie does another Gaz like solo that just kind of bubbles out at the very end. That's real cool.
Yeah, I
So,
did soundtrack to Evil Knievel Stunt. Mm-hmm. Nice wah bits, drum breaks, flutter guitar onslaught.
There it is. Yep. And so that's kind of it for Ruben and Eddie, at least for now. And Foo goes on the next year in '97 to put out an even bigger record, I think commercially. They had a couple videos on MTV. Evil Eye, for sure, I saw a lot on MTV. That was kind of a big deal on some level. And Action is Go is where they bring in Bob Bulk on lead guitar, and now Brant Bjork joins on drums, who had done the production earlier.
It was from Caius.
Yeah, yep. Lyrics turn beyond cars to more fantasy, sci-fi, skateboarding. The cover is fairly iconic. It's a 1977 photo of a famous early skateboarder by the name of Glenn Friedman, who I think was in that
from that the documentary.
Yeah, the Dogs of Lords of
Dogtown.
Lords of Dogtown
or something.
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. I think that's where Glenn Friedman's from. I don't know a lot.
I love
about
the look of you've got those big old over the ear headphones with a headband to keep them on.
Yeah,
like Lars used to do in the studio.
He almost looks like I don't know if you've seen photos of Scott, but that's kind of what Scott sort of looks like a little bit. Yeah, I mean he's older now, but probably younger he looked like that.
He kind of looks a little bit like Jay Mascis.
Yeah, a little bit
a young Jay Mascis.
If you mix that and the drummer from Foo Fighters, Taylor Hawkins, they kind of look a little bit.
See that?
So, but yeah, so it's more fantasy, sci-fi kind of stuff that's going on. More of the, just like the Southern California culture. And there's a lot more like kind of psychedelic crunch throughout. Pretty killer production. I mean, it's more crisp, but it's a little less dirgy, which kind of bums me out a bit. But it's ex-White Zombie guitarist Jay Younger that did all the production for that. So kind of.
Well, was he in the first couple of White Zombie records?
Yeah. He
Okay.
was the other guitar player with Rob, and then Sean was on bass, the female.
Tempesta on drums.
And then Tempesta on drums, yep. So for some Foo fans, it's their fave, and I said I won't fault anyone for that. It's probably my second favorite.
I liked it a lot when it came out.
Yeah. But songs like Urethane, with that lowrider fucking cowbell, to me, in a sense, that's like a portent into where Foo's going to go. A little bit more, I don't want to say tongue-in-cheek, but more in like Queens of the Stone Age, kind of relaxed vibe. It's less... You're not going to hear as many like Neptune's Convoys and Strato-Streaks and stuff like that. Those like just fucking heavy monolithic kind of
self-censoring. There's like one idea per song, tweaked a little bit. There's not as many riffs.
Well, I also think Bob's a different type of guitar player than Eddie.
Yeah, for sure.
He's not as like visceral and like as a kind of psychedelic maybe, or like because I think
he's more straight. I think.
When you listen to Nebula is like where Eddie's ideas get to like go fucking bonkers.
They're much. I think Nebula's much more Monster Magnet, psychedelia, space lords than Fu Manchu ever was.
Absolutely, so they kind of go into that less heavy, more catchy kind of territory in the future. And so after Seahag, we're going to hear a pair of tunes from Action Is Go, just to sort of kind of put a wrap on kind of the narrative of Fu Manchu, at least in this era. And then we're also going to hear a tune from the debut from Nebula. And Nebula puts out like their debut EP, Let It Burn, on Relapse, which I always found to be kind of like, that made me like more excited. I was like, oh shit, this is on Relapse,
Yeah.
And I think
that's like when Relapse is really trying to be their own thing too. Yeah. Because that's like the year after they put out Through Silver and Blood.
Elegy had come out.
This is 97, right?
98 is when they put it out, but it may have come out. Some of the songs I think were like floating around 97, maybe on like some 7-inches or things like that. And then Relapse like collected it. Like the song we're going to play, Devil's Liquid, was like a bonus track that I think had come from like an EP or some split, I think, with somebody perhaps.
Yeah.
So I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, the pair of tunes we're going to hear from Action Is Go is Evil Eye, which is probably maybe one of, if not their most popular iconic tune. I mean, they still play it live.
Probably peak stoner era riffs.
Yeah, this is it.
A little leaner, a little cleaner, a little more poppy.
Yes. It is about a cursed flat track motorcycle race. The lyrics: push through the floor halfway through the turn as we ride up high. The dirt starts to burn. Wheels of his heap hits the back street wall. Evil Eye has signaled unapproachable.
I think there's a Roger Corman movie about that.
Yeah, I think so too. I kind of like Bob's presence here. He's doing some cool stuff with like kind of some of the psychedelic flair. He's a little more reserved, as we said, from Eddie. Mm-hmm. But man, Scott's boogie and Brant rips on drums.
Yeah. He had something, I think, extra special.
Yeah, I mean, Ruben's great in his own regard, but Brant's like...
what you're missing from Eddie, I think Brant kind of...
Exactly, makes up for. And then Urethane, holy shit, I just said... It's like... It's got this, like, awesome, like, gasoline opening line, it's kind of talking about that. And then you get the War kind of lowrider groove by Davis and Bjork, and kind of that's like I said, a portent to the future, more of that kind of stoner, warmer, polished kind of vibes going on.
See, this is what Metallica needed to do with Fuel.
Yeah,
If they could have got some of this kind of something
more
vibe,
clever vibes. Yep.
yeah, where the lyrics weren't quite so shit.
Yep. There's this great like punch when the chorus when he says it's been hidden away for 50 years. And it reminds me more of like some of the catchy choruses you'll hear with like Separate Kingdom and stuff like that, you know, sing along kind of stuff. And so, yeah, you got Evil Eye and Urethane. And then the story on Nebula is essentially this, that Eddie and Ruben hook up with the old bass player Mark Abshear, and form Nebula in 97. And Glass takes on the vocals. I think he does a pretty good job. He's not as good as Eddie, but he's got his style, you know. They relish more in the psychedelic kind of Hawkwind elements from earlier Foo. Sonic Titan, which is another great song on Let It Burn, kind of hits on that. That's like 8 minutes long. It does a lot of like, it's like Monster Mag. It just goes on little space adventures, you know, like solo adventures and shit like that. But, you know, they kind of build off of where like Daredevil and In Search Of kind of leave off, but they kind of go into more open kind of elements. Whoops.
Yeah, much more experimental, I think.
And Devil's Liquid, which we're going to play, that's always been one of my faves from Nebula. When Eddie locks in with that chorus, I'm not your preacher, and Ruben's just sort of grooving with those cymbals that, I think it's cymbals, isn't he? Is he hitting the ride there? The you know.
Or usually they're, instead of using
I'm not your preacher.
if they are using a ride, usually it's one of those like huge rides. It's like where it actually sounds like a crash ride too. So it's got that constant kind of like bombardment.
It sort of washes over.
Yeah.
It's very cool. Yeah, so it's iconic. Eddie gets to play with that call and response soloing that he perfected, obviously, in some of the earlier
Power
stuff.
Trio.
Yeah. Cream.
I dig it.
Blue
Motorhead.
Cheer, Motorhead.
At some point.
Yeah, exactly. So we got a fun little set here before we kind of wrap things up when we come back and say our goodbyes and stuff. But we got Seahag from In Search Of, pair of tunes from Action Is Go, Evil Eye, and Urethane, and then one Nebula song, just to give you a preview where those guys kind of go with Devil's Liquid. So enjoy. Devil's Liquid, Urethane, Evil Eye, and Seahag. Yeah, I know. You're so bummed about that. We could just pretend it's about Popeye.
Well,
no
I
one
think the
no one
Popeye
needs to know.
Seahag was like a play on the sirens, but they were these ugly, gross.
Yeah, instead of beautiful, like temptress.
They looked like him.
Yeah.
At least the old, Seeger comics. But
So we don't know, but I have put out some feelers that I'm hoping that maybe we'll be able to tag it on maybe at the end after Supershooter, or maybe Mark can just creatively throw this somewhere in the episode. So maybe by the time you're even hearing this, we'll have already heard from Eddie and Ruben. Although you could probably put it right here after, right before the bargain. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so I reached out to some of the guys, Ruben and Eddie. I kind of tracked them down, and they both said that they were interested in giving like little testimonials about In Search Of, and kind of just this era of the band.
It was Scott and Ruben,
what did I
right?
say? Yeah, Scott.
So
Sorry,
Eddie?
Scott and Scott and Ruben. So get one perspective from one of the guys leaving, and obviously the main guy, Scott. So I'm hoping they get back with me. They kind of promised, but we're not going to wait on this forever to put this episode out. So
we got till Sunday.
Yeah, we
or
got some
whenever
time.
I get time to.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's a Patreon show, so we can throw it up whenever. So
nobody's beating the door down waiting for it.
You got it. So so hopefully by then we'll have this. So we wanted to put together something fun, but also a little bit sort of within the realm of some of the Doom series. And probably the next Patreon show, I kind of told Mark we threw something together that's kind of the opposite of this show for our next Patreon show.
Yeah, so
it may delve into the Southern Lord territory, a little bit more experimental, probably a little bit more harrowing for some people. So we're going to go from warm and fuzzy Patreon show to something a little more frightening.
It's nothing. Yeah, it's nothing we've ever done before.
It's not one singular band, but kind of just a few bands that we can kind of like dip our toe in without having to like fully commit.
Personally, it's not something that I really
it's
strongly have a good feeling about.
Yeah, it's not stuff I spend a lot of time with, but I'm interested, and it's part of the Doom narrative, and we probably should give it its due. But there is one record in particular I really do like, and I guess we can tell you guys, the Thor's Hammer.
Yeah.
So that was like the impetus to like...
Yeah, we're not going to do like a 5.5 hour Sun...
Hey man, how much Sun do you want? We can give it all to you. So
I feel like they're a band that's best watched live when you're stoned.
I did pull out one Sun song, but I'll get your opinion on it.
Song.
What did I say? Sun song?
No, I mean I was song in parentheses just because it's mostly feedback, and I like the stuff with Attila on it is more interesting.
It's one that I don't think I have it pulled up, but it's one that actually has another band working with them.
Okay.
Which helps
have you heard the stuff
structure.
with Attila doing?
I've heard like some clips.
That I found that more interesting just because he's like a performance artist anyways.
Well, I think there's one song, Sun song, Jesus, that I think has Runhild on it as well. And that's kind of interesting, the vocalist from Thor's Hammer. So, but anyways, just something to look forward to. Who knows when we'll record that? We're kind of busy getting all these episodes together and shit, but
we have our hands in many pies right now.
Yeah, but Patreon fans, I can let you guys know since you're our exclusive supporters, but we've got some big episodes on the way. We did do an interview with Mike Williams, so obviously I Hate God's going to be coming in the Doom series. We're setting something up with Eric Wagner to get Trouble. They're pretty essential to this story, and something big I think will be the capstone for the end of all this. We're hoping to get some
guest hosts, maybe
a guest host. And speaking of guest hosts, very soon, next 2 weeks from now, we'll be getting together with Albert from Decibel.
But you want to keep who it is as a secret?
Yeah, we'll keep it who's secret. But if you've paid attention,
probably figure it out pretty
Here's
easy.
what I did. I will tell people about this crazy fucking nonsense. I went through and inventoried all the Decibel issues. Because I was
You should try to sell that information.
I should. I kind of hinted to Albert about it in case he was like want it. But the reason I did it was I was annoyed that I was constantly trying to like figure out what issue they did an interview with this band and what issue. The only thing you can kind of find online is like the Hall of Fames, and you could I could scroll through all the fucking covers. So I just took all my Decibels upstairs one night, and this is when I was watching like Johnny Dangerously and
all these
kind of. Yeah, so I just took boxes up, and I would just pull issues out, and I just kind of inventoried what some of the main interviews were, bands that we might care about in the future episodes.
Sure. Yeah.
That way, I'm like, ugh. And the band that we're doing with Albert had the biggest stack of
not surprising.
Of the stuff for our series.
And it's not withered.
Yes, not withered. Yeah, but it's another band that has been featured prominently.
I think it's a band that probably deserves the credit that they
Yeah,
get.
no.
I think they don't get enough credit, to be honest.
Absolutely. And honestly, it's a band we missed when I first sent my master list of who we're kind of thinking of, and it was Albert that sort of jumped out. I was like, what about? And I was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah. It
So-
kind of fills out the whole thing pretty nicely.
Yeah, I kind of think of that Doom Terrorizer issue where they have all those little subgenres, and they've got drone, they've got funeral Doom, they've got epic Doom, which was like Solitude, they've got traditional Doom, they've got stoner Doom,
Yeah.
So I feel like we'll probably cover most of our bases, even drone, if we talk about Sun briefly, it's not like my ideal go-to, but it exists. People are into it.
And for all American stuff, I like that we got all those bases kind of hit too with
Sludge.
It's easy to like. I think it'd be easier to do it as like a worldwide phenomenon, but we don't really focus on the States as much as maybe we should sometimes.
Yeah.
So it's nice to kind of come back and like, oh, we've got a pretty good wealth of
Absolutely.
great stuff coming out of here too.
Absolutely.
Like no matter what the genre might be.
Got it. So.
But what genre will we do after Doom?
Who fucking knows, man?
I think
Probably not a genre.
We're gonna do some.
I think
Some back to basics,
Yeah,
just like, hey, let's do one record and no other songs
Yeah,
except for that record.
let's enjoy ourselves a little bit. So the two songs we're going to end with, these are two, I think outside of Strato-Streak, these are probably the two songs I'm the most familiar with because The Bargain was always a song that we would drive around to. I remember us like driving around, and I think because we were such... so we were so inexperienced with like the partying scene and stuff like that. We would be like, I think this is probably like kind of song you like get stoned to or whatever. Like we had such like warped perceptions, just the way that like, Scott is on this whole song.
It's way better than any song people get stoned to.
He's so fucking
It reminds
laid
me
back.
If Iggy was singing with the Sabbath,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I
like
can
The
see it.
Passenger or something. It's
Yeah. Yep. There's a Kaya song that we always link together with The Bargain called Catamaran, which is on not Sky Valley, but
Circus Left Town,
Leaves Town.
Okay.
And it's the Catamaran comes right before the final song on Circus Leaves Town. That final song, it's a long song. It escapes me right now. But Catamaran's like very like low key and chill, and then it goes into just like this monster fucking riff.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what The Bargain fading into Supershooter is. And you get that great like cosmic ray gun thing that I've made reference to in past episodes. And then
I'm pretty sure that's a pedal knob thing.
Probably. Yeah, it's perfect. It's just this
Yeah.
perfect merger. But
Well, at this time in the history of music, it's such like an identifiable psychedelic
Sure.
element to
Yeah.
like put into stuff.
But I think one of the things that's so cool too about the way that like Scott kind of sings on The Bargain is I said it feels like he's barely conscious the way he's like sort of singing like drift the machine go. He's just
like laying on his back, kind of playing guitar.
yeah, he's just like I want to take a nap and just kind of close my eyes and sit on the patio and just kind of like think about summer and yeah. And
Think about my
Ruben
skate
does
tricks,
this
man.
little like military drum fill that is just like kind of perfect. Like it's great. And Eddie's just feeling it. It's his last little solo. And then there's that subtle stop at like the 2:15 mark.
Yeah.
And then that laconic kind of like song fading into Supershooter. And how can you not love that Monster Magnet fucking cosmic fucking riff? I mean, it's platonic ideal of like this scene is like that opening of Supershooter. So
I'm frankly kind of surprised there's not like a subgenre of like cosmic spacey doom.
yeah, I mean Monster Magnet probably, or bands like that copy.
But there's
that.
nobody else really that I can think of.
What's the band that's from Ed's other band, Atomic Bitchwax? They're kind of in that realm.
So I'm not really familiar with
They're
them.
pretty good. He's the other guitar player in Monster Magnet.
Okay.
So yeah, I always like them better in their name.
Yeah, I mean, I get it's like a atomic surfing reference,
Sure.
but
yeah, exactly. But
Bitchwax always just sounds dumb to me. I don't know. I had a hard time with stupid band names or what I perceived as stupid band names
Sure.
as a kid.
It's tough. Yeah, it can kind of put you off.
Like the Flamin' Groovies or the Flamin' Sideburn. Like some of those, I was just like, oh, I hate this like Rat Fink culture stuff. Like
Flamin' Groovies made sense because they came out in the 70s.
Yeah.
So they weren't just like, it was just like part of like the lingo then. It was like authentic.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
Flamin' Sideburns is like an ode to Flamin' Groovies and
Yeah.
that sort of shit. But I had a bunch of Italian friends that were like, would sit around and smoke hash and just talk about the Flamin' Groovies all the time. So of
course.
I kind of grew to like, yeah, okay, I kind of appreciate them. So, but once again, patrons, we appreciate your support. We've never been stronger in terms of Patreons. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, you know, get other metal fans kind of linked in. If you like stuff like this, be like, dude, you got to hear this fucking Fu Manchu, you know, episode that they did. They got fucking Ed or Ruben and Scott and, you know, other people sort of involved. And, you know, we tell stories, we bullshit around, but obviously we care about you guys
absolutely.
and stuff like that.
And it's getting close to me needing a new computer for our whole editing suite here. So,
Yep.
tell your mom and dad if they want to throw some bucks at us.
A grandpa, grandma, they like Fu Manchu. Who
you know,
doesn't?
instead of giving money to NPR, they get money from the government already. Why don't you give it to us?
We get nothing. We got no
we
ads.
don't even do the friend raiser.
No, we could.
We just do maybe a minute or so. We don't interrupt your programming. Mm-hmm. So instead of giving them $50 a year, throw it at us.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's tax dedeductible, but if your account's good enough, it could be.
It could be. Yes, could be indeed. So, all right. So let's kick it out. We got 2 more tunes from In Search Of to end things here on our little Patreon's Doom special. This is The Bargain. This is Supershooter. This is What You Need. Straight side.
No chaser.
Yeah. Some. I can't. This is what you need. I don't even know what the fuck he says, but he says something funny. So. For Requiem Metal Podcasts, enjoy Fu Manchu. I'm Jason.
Fu it. I'm Mark.
Why'd I get this far this time?
Man, it was 1995 when we recorded In Search Of at Grandmaster Studios in LA. Brian Jenkins was producer. Yeah, he was a funny guy. Yeah, Grandmaster Studios was pretty awesome. It had this lounge on an upstairs second level that looked just like Captain Hook's bedroom out of like a Spanish galleon ship. It was pretty cool just hanging out there. I remember seeing the original picture of the cover, with the two cars, and that's actually Scott's sister, who's the girl with the flag. And the original picture, it was still cool, but it was this really like clear day with not a cloud in the sky. And it was just this powder blue sky, baby blue and, kind of boring. So I remember going to the graphic designer at Mammoth who was working on the cover. I had this astronomy book, and I pulled out this page and said, put this up in the sky. And that's where you get the space scene. That was totally my idea, and I'm going to totally claim it. That was me. Yeah, I also worked at a reprographic shop, and one day I kind of saw this book they had in there, and it was a book of fonts. And, back in those days, it's not like today where you just type in and find all these fonts and stuff, So finding a book full of fonts was kind of a little bit of a golden, treasure. So I also kind of found the font for that Fu Manchu and the cover. I was totally always into kind of the graphic part of the band, like the 7 inches and all that kind of stuff. I did all the layouts and things like that, the picture of like Scott's hand putting the quarter into the pinball machine, I took that picture. So I was always kind of into the graphic design part of it. So when it came down to In Search Of, I thought that was one of the coolest things that kind of, I was able to lend or add, contribute, if you will, was that spacey skyline. I remember when the graphic designer sent back the photo and I saw it for the first time with that background. I was like, fuck yeah. With In Search Of being released, it was time to support it, and that was the first time that the band was really like constantly going on tours. So it was a lot to learn, man. The first time you get into that kind of situation, and everyone's personalities get revealed, and some just clash, and others meld, and what else? What else can you say about that? But it's normal. It's human. And it just didn't seem to work between the four of us anymore. So. I think that the whole deal kind of stunk at the time. For me, I was in this for just as long as Scott was at that time, So it was my baby just as much as it was his baby. So yeah, I was bummed being on the, on the out end of it all. But, I kind of think it kind of, just was fate, I guess, and then, then the idea of Nebula came up. Of course I can only speak for myself, but I got a taste of that life on the road and that being able to play every night, and doing what you did as a kid, thinking, yeah, man, I'm going to be a rock and roll drummer, and yeah, and look, I am a rock and roll drummer. So for me, there was no way that I was going to stop, I had that drive, and also, maybe a little bit of spite, I'll admit on hindsight that, I was like, well, if you could do it, I could still do it. And, when Eddie and I spoke and said, hey, Eddie, you have all these songs that you have demoed, and, why don't we use that and let's just continue. Let's just keep on doing it, And that's what we did. We actually had a first bass player, this guy named Bugsy. He played the very first show that Nebula played, which was some warehouse party, and Costa Mesa somewhere, a local where we were living, where we were hanging out. Yeah, and come to think of it, that first show, I was talking with Scott Reeder, the drummer now of Fu Manchu. Smile, his band Smile, they were still in existence. I mean, I don't know if they still are. I hope they are. But it was a connection with Scott Reeder, and he was the one who invited us to play this warehouse. So, coincidence, all these, I just remembered that right now thinking about it. But yeah, there was this guy, Bugsy. So he was technically, I guess, the original Nebula bass player. And, he was a pretty flashy guy. And, he thought that I dressed like a gas station attendant. So anyway, I guess that guy had other Hollywood plans, and he kind of, took off. And I was like, let's call Mark. So, that's what we did. We called Mark, and luckily he was available, and it was from that point on more good times ahead. I'm still doing it, I'm still maybe doing more of it on my own. I like to record in my home studio. Really want to, if you don't mind me plugging, but I have another band. We're called The Freaks, and as of recently, Ed Mandel of Monster Magnet has joined in. So I'm back on drums for the longest time, trying to keep a challenge for myself, so drumming, I've done that. So I went forward with a guitar in hand, and I wrote some songs, and I started singing. So I took that end. But, once a drummer, always a drummer. So I just had this kind of tendency on wanting to go back. So we actually recorded a full record. It's recorded, done, mostly mixed, got to be mastered. I'm back on drums, Ed's on guitar. And, if you guys don't mind me doing the plug here, throwing this one in, hope people might come and check it out. We did release one tune with this current lineup. It's over on our Bandcamp page. So we actually released one of the songs that we recorded that's going to be part of the album.